Second year of Great Xia, July 1st. To the west of Wushuang, Peng Bo rushed from the snowy plains to the west, covered in dust from travel. He quickly glanced around before dashing toward a high point on a small snow hill. Minister, 3,000 Longyu soldiers covered nearly 7 kilometers in an hour. On the snow hill, Xia Chuan, dressed in white, turned around immediately upon hearing these words, his face full of astonishment as he said, 7 kilometers in an hour that fast. The Cloud Dragon Army, with just 1,000 soldiers, can normally only cover 5 kilometers in an hour on snowy plains. For 3,000 Longyu soldiers, one would expect their marching speed to be much slower. Unexpectedly, they're actually 40% faster than the Cloud Dragon Army. The formation time is ultimately longer than ours. What Big Brother said is true. The comprehensive quality of these 3,000 Longyu soldiers is probably much higher than that of the Cloud Dragon Army. After pondering for a moment, Xia Chuan's expression grew much more serious. However, Peng Bo continued speaking at this moment. He picked up a branch from the ground and drew a rough route map in the snow, saying to Xia Chuan, Minister, based on the cold resistance level outposts I set up along the way from Long Mountain, I've roughly deduced their marching route. The total distance should be about 25 kilometers. Counting the time it took me to return, they should arrive here in a little over 2 hours. Looking at the route map on the ground, Xia Chuan's eyes instantly lit up. After all, it's the old leader of Yanglu. Compared to Lin Kai, who was sent out first to scout the movements of the army from Long Mountain, the intelligence Peng Bo brought back is obviously more valuable. There are many scouts set up along the way by the opposing side. Roughly estimating, there are at least 30 to 40 people, plus those with the army. Long Mountain likely brought along 90% of their cold resistance levels this time, intending to decide victory in Wushuang with one battle. Xia Chuan said in a deep voice upon hearing this, even a lion uses all its strength against a rabbit, let alone Longyu, which has just suffered 2 losses at our hands. Long Mountain is the aggressor. They won't easily break through Wushuang without bringing out all they have. Li Xuanling is not foolish. Compared to Great Xia, Long Mountain's biggest advantage is these 3,000 Longyu soldiers and the vast number of cold resistance levels. She will definitely make good use of this point. Peng Bo first nodded, then chuckled lowly. It's a pity for Long Mountain. Tonight, they are destined to find nothing. Li Xuanling probably couldn't imagine that Wushuang, under such alert by so many cold resistance levels, actually has no one there. Upon hearing this, Xia Chuan also let a faint smile appear on his face, turning to look at the Wushuang giant stone camp to the east, a gleam of brilliance flickering in his eyes. Long Mountain has gotten smart, knowing to send people in advance to scout the camp conditions. Unfortunately, Li Xuanling hasn't invested deeply enough, sending a few people here who can't even get past the perimeter. From such a distance, at most they can determine no one has left the camp, but they can't see the situation within the camp at all. Peng Bo laughed and responded, the 2 Xia direct roads of Wushuang, one to the northeast connecting to Hankyang and the other to the southeast connecting to Beehive, are both buried under the snow. The entrances are about 2 kilometers from the camp. We chose to vigil at 3 kilometers out, likely leaving Long Mountain unsure why. Since daytime, Xia Chuan had been defending the west with Peng Bo and 10 others. Although they only sensed one cold resistance level approaching midway, he could judge that having suffered heavy losses at Changbai Gully and Ningyuan Hill, Long Mountain definitely wouldn't only send that one cold resistance level. Although the visibility on the snowy plains is good, at night it's at most about a mile. Even if Long Mountain sent people to all 4 directions, their observation range would only cover a circle 2 to 3 kilometers around the Wushuang perimeter, without even seeing the direct road entrances clearly. With this information gap, there are too many things they can do. About 10 minutes ago, when Zhao Long arrived with 1,000 from Hankyang, Chen Yingyuan retracted the alert line northward. If Long Mountain had scouts in that direction, they certainly would have noticed. It's just unknown. While Xia Chuan was contemplating, suddenly a figure rushed from the north. Newcomer was Su Ning, carrying a longbow and holding a mo blade, his face full of excitement as he approached Xia Chuan and cupped his hands, saying, Minister, as the leader predicted, when Zhao Long's army arrived, we deliberately retracted the alert line. The Long Mountain scouts couldn't resist approaching immediately. After discovering Zhao Long's army, that person even tried to get close to observe the soldiers' cultivation. Once we discovered him, he fled directly without engaging. Chen Yingyuan recognized that person as Li Tiancheng's eldest son, Li Xuanping. Good. Upon hearing Su Ning's words, Xia Chuan's expression immediately lit up with excitement. Ha. Su Ning couldn't help but laugh, saying, the original plan of the leader was to let Zhao Long make some noise himself to attract the attention of the Long Mountain scouts. Who would have thought that Li Xuanping himself would appear, even knowing to probe the cultivation of that group of people? He must have already returned to Long Mountain's army to report to Li Xuanling. Not just the north, we also have activity to the east. As Su Ning's words fell, Yuan Dao's voice came from the south side of the snow hill. Yuan Dao, wielding a broad sword, approached with a grin, bowing to Xia Chuan. Minister, good news. The eastern scouts were also drawn out by us. Oh? Xia Chuan's eyes immediately brightened as he turned to look at Yuan Dao. It's a woman. I was just organizing the last group of station troops, preparing to take the southeast Xia direct road to withdraw from Wushwang and head to Beehive. Recalling what the leader said, certainly, a large number of Long Mountain scouts would be around Wushwang. I had an impromptu idea, having that group feign towards the Wushwang camp, and then deliberately retracting the alert circle. That female scout from Long Mountain indeed fell for it and approached immediately to observe the situation. Chapter 714. Chapter 293. The Lion Hunts the Rabbit, Luring the Enemy and Falling into a Trap, Part 2. What's happening at the back? I took Hong Guang and Hong Tian, 6 of us in total, to make a move, pretending to fight to the death to detain them. That woman didn't get entangled and fled directly, seemingly quite pleased when escaping. Hadohafu. Hearing about the female scout's delight as she fled, Xia Chuan couldn't help but burst into laughter. So, the scouts from the north and east directions both think we've mobilized a large number of people to Wushwang from elsewhere. After Li Xuanling finds out, she will surely think we're going to have a decisive battle with her at Wushwang. The 3,000 Longyu army must be extremely high-spirited now. Yuan Dao, Peng Bo, and Su Ning couldn't help but laugh after hearing this. About 10 kilometers east of Songyuan, the vast army of 3,000 Longyu soldiers was continuing to advance eastward. Li Xuanling led over a dozen cold resistance-level warriors, following on the army's flank. People continuously ran back and forth from the front of the army, reporting something to Li Xuanling, and after reporting, they immediately ran forward again. Clearly, they all served as temporary scouts for the army at the cold resistance level. Leader, isn't this being overly cautious? Great Xia only has that Cloud Dragon army. At least 20% was lost in last night's battle, leaving at most 800 men. Even if they replenish, ambushing us halfway would be a dead end, right? Yang Fengping, the Longshan divine archer, observed the cold resistance level warriors, who were usually high and mighty in Long Mountain, now transformed into scouts, running back and forth, and couldn't help but speak to Li Xuanling with a strange expression. Although others didn't speak, their expressions clearly showed agreement. The troops deployed from Long Mountain tonight were not new troops nor the Blood Guard army, but rather 3,000 elite Longyu soldiers. They really didn't believe that Xia Hong had the guts to ambush them midway, or rather in their hearts they hoped Great Xia had the nerve to try. In their view, Li Xuanling's behavior was a bit of an overreaction. However, Li Xuanling obviously did not share the others' opinions. Better to be safe than sorry. Great Xia isn't weak, and Xia Hong is no ordinary person. Before the Cloud Dragon army appeared, did you know Great Xia had an army? We must learn from past mistakes, or else the defeats at Changbai Gully and Ningyuan Hill would have been fought in vain, wouldn't they? Hearing these words, everyone paused slightly and all fell silent. Li Xuanling's brows furrowed briefly, and after glancing around, she didn't say anything more. She spoke this way to make these people more alert, or rather, to cultivate their vigilance. But to be fair, in her heart, she actually shared a similar thought to the others. It would be great if Xia Hong actually dared to set an ambush midway. The 2 battles fought by the Cloud Dragon army last night were indeed well executed, but from the accounts of the new soldiers and Blood Guard soldiers who escaped, the overall strength of the Cloud Dragon army wasn't actually that strong. Some soldiers' cultivation hadn't even reached the earth-digging realm limit. The victories at Changbai Gully and Ningyuan Hill were essentially won through surprise tactics. Of course, the choice of ambush locations and the effective use of the Cloud Dragon army's Mo Blade, Horizontal Blade, and scout units on the battlefield were also factors, but they weren't the main reasons for the victory. The 3,000 Longyu soldiers she led now were not only above the earth-digging realm limit in cultivation, but also mostly brought up personally by her father, Li Tianhua. They were seasoned veterans, obeying orders and skilled in battle tactics, not comparable to the Cloud Dragon army. If Great Xia truly dared to set an ambush midway, it would definitely be their death. Unfortunately, Li Xuanling was well aware that Xia Hong wasn't that foolish. Wushuang, Hankyang, Beehive, all three places are under Great Xia's control. Wushuang is the foremost and most crucial place. The first step to driving Great Xia out of Longyu is to capture Wushuang. The question is, will Xia Hong dare to face this battle at Wushuang? Wushuang is at the center of the entire Longyu. From here to any camp in Longyu is the shortest distance, making it incredibly strategic. Li Xuanling remembered clearly that when she had stationed her army between White Abyss and Wushuang, Great Xia had sent a special envoy named Qiu Peng, expressing their wish to co-govern Wushuang with Long Mountain. This incident clearly showed that Great Xia understood the importance of Wushuang. It stands to reason that Great Xia won't give up Wushuang easily, but if they rely only on those 800 Cloud Dragon army soldiers, they surely can't hold it. So either they retreat or they continue to transfer people from Xia City. The only thing to guard against now is whether Great Xia has other forces to deploy. If they do, this battle won't be so easy. Li Xuanling's brows furrowed slightly in thought. Suddenly sensing something, she looked forward. A white figure was speeding towards the army from the eastern snowfield, immediately recognized by those with sharp eyes at the front. It's Xuanping. It must be news about Wushuang. Seeing Li Xuanping in a hurried manner, everyone quickly formed a guess. Li Xuanling was also instantly alert, waiting for him. Although Li Xuanping appeared rushed, he clearly carried a smile. He approached Li Xuanling directly, clasped his hands, and opened his mouth to speak without hesitation. Report to leader, Great Xia has transferred all 1,000 troops from Hankyang to Wushuang. The 1,000 troops from Hankyang. Li Xuanling's expression tightened, and she immediately asked in a deep voice, "Are you sure it's the troops from Hankyang? Did you see clearly that they are all of ordinary earth-digging realm cultivation?" In the past 2 months, Li Xuanling had already sent people to thoroughly investigate the situations in Wushuang, Hankyang, and Beehive. That Great Xia had left 1,000 troops in Hankyang wasn't a secret. Chapter 715. Chapter 293. The Lion Hunts the Rabbit, Luring the Enemy and Falling into a Trap, Part 3. Li Xuanling remembered very clearly. At that time, the scout reported back that the 1,000 defenders of Hankyang were all of the ordinary earth-digging realm cultivation. Supposedly, deploying 1,000 earth-digging realm to Wushuang wouldn't be of much use. Xia Hong must have known this, which is why she was suspicious of this information, suspecting that Li Xuanping had seen wrong or been deceived. Absolutely certain, I even risked getting closer to observe. They are all just ordinary earth-digging realm. Their war armor and weapons are only at the 10 forged level. Li Xuanping paused here, then sneered. Then Xia Hong surely has no one else to use. That's why she had no choice but to transfer these 1,000 from Hankyang, hoping to hold Wushuang to the death, to resist our Long Mountain advance. What use can 1,000 ordinary earth-digging realm be? Li Xuanling frowned tightly, still having some confusion on her face. The garrison had 2,000 earth-digging realm, plus these 1,000 from Hankyang. Wushuang now has at most 3,000 earth-digging realm, plus that 1,000 Cloud Dragon army. Xia Hong couldn't possibly think that with these 4,000, she could block the 3,000 Longyu army, could she? As soon as Li Xuandu spoke, everyone immediately started mockingly teasing. 4,000 against 3,000. Does she think the Longyu army soldiers are just ordinary earth-digging realm too? Talking nonsense in one's sleep. Unless that Cloud Dragon army are all cold resistance level. The earth-digging realm soldiers who have begun reshaping their skin with beast blood, and those who only have hunting qualifications, are completely different concepts. To put it directly, it's the difference between a basic strength of over 30,000 caddies and over 10,000 caddies. If you factor in skin toughness, weapons, war armor, and other factors, the gap only widens. There's a common understanding in Longyu that an army composed of ordinary earth-digging realm, wanting to confront regular troops on the battlefield, shouldn't even think about it without at least 10 times the numbers. Earth-digging realm, plus 1,000 Cloud Dragon army, 4,000 defending against 3,000 Longyu army. If Xia Hong really intends this, then Great Xia is doomed tonight. The other cold resistance level are clear, and Li Xuanling is naturally even clearer. She just thinks a bit more than the others. She always felt that Xia Hong wouldn't be that foolish. As she pondered, suddenly someone pointed to the east and shouted urgently. Xuanqiu has also returned. Another scout was back. Li Xuanling perked up, watching her cousin Li Xuanqiu hastily approaching from a distance. Li Xuanqiu wasted no words, speaking directly upon arrival. Reporting to the leader, nearly 1,000 earth-digging realm arrived at Wushwang, judging by the direction they came from Beehive. Xuan Dong and I discovered an underground passageway beneath the snow southeast of Wushwang. It should be connected to Beehive. It's expected that they haven't just sent one group. A large number of people are likely to follow from that passageway. A large group of earth-digging realm from Beehive are also headed to Wushwang. Upon hearing this news, smiles appeared on everyone's faces. Even Li Xuanling completely set aside her previous suspicions. Xia Hong truly plans to gather all the earth-digging realm of Great Xia and Longyu to defend Wushwang to the death. Good, very good, this is perfect. Leader, the Great Xia's passageway is very long. It's a bit difficult to completely destroy it, but with a few more people and some time, it could still be done. Why don't I take some people to destroy that passageway and stop Great Xia's reinforcements from continuing to gather at Wushwang? Li Xuanqiu suggested, with some eagerness on everyone's faces. But Li Xuanling, after thinking for a moment, immediately shook her head. No need, the passageway can be destroyed any time, just not now. Hearing this, everyone was somewhat puzzled. Exactly. Li Xuandu was the first to catch on, his eyes slightly brightened. Seeing the continued confusion among the crowd, he promptly explained. Having reinforcements arrive is what allows Great Xia to dare continue holding Wushwang. If the passage is destroyed and the reinforcements can't come for a while, Great Xia won't defend Wushwang, and that's when we would be in trouble, understand? After hearing these words, everyone suddenly came to a realization, nodding in agreement. Li Xuanping, Li Xuanqiu, you two should keep an eye on the surroundings of Wushwang. Report back with any updates, regardless of how many people Great Xia sends. Just watch them go in. Understood, leader. Li Xuanping and Li Xuanqiu bowed, and immediately turned to head east. Li Xuanling turned to look east, her voice brimming with murderous intent. Inform the army to speed up. There's only 9 kilometers left. Strive to arrive in just over an hour. Tonight we will show Great Xia who truly commands Longyu land. Yes. All the cold resistance level responded in unison, their faces filled with killing intent, and then dispersed throughout the army, loudly urging them on. Chapter 716. Chapter 294. Empty-handed with belated realization. The 48th year of Longyu, June 21. Round 4 hours after nightfall, 2 kilometers west of Wushwang on the snowfield. The mighty 3,000 Longyu army had finally arrived. The army will rest on the spot, prepare bows and align the troops. Although the Wushwang giant stone camp could be vaguely seen under the snowy night, Li Xuanling did not rush to attack the city, considering the arduous journey of the 3,000 soldiers. Instead, she ordered everyone to rest right where they were. The army will rest on the spot, prepare bows and align the troops. The army will rest on the spot, prepare bows and align the troops. As the military orders were passed on to every corner, all 3,000 soldiers stopped in their tracks, plunged their long spears into the snow beside them, then sat down cross-legged on the spot, took off their longbows, and quickly began organizing their armor. Clang, clang, clang. The 3,000-strong army remained silent, with only the sound of armor rubbing against each other. Many soldiers looked up at the looming giant stone camp under the snowy night to the east, their eyes filled with killing intent, making the atmosphere instantly somber and murderous. Li Xuanling, leading a group of cold resistance-level soldiers in the front, looked across at the giant stone camp. Let's discuss how should we attack. Li Xuandu was the first to speak. Wushwang only has one main gate on the east side, 3 meters wide and 6 meters high. It would be too troublesome for 3,000 men to attack from there. Let's have second uncle join us, directly break through from the west side and attack through the giant stones. Having been the overlord of Longyu for decades, Long Mountain was well aware of the situation of all 11 giant camps under Longyu, and Wushwang was no exception. Attacking from the main gate would require the army to continue marching to the east, and the 3-meter-wide, 6-meter-high iron gate would not be easy to break open. Even if they succeeded, the advantages of the 3,000 Long-Yu army could not be fully displayed. Compared to attacking the main gate, directly breaking open the giant stones on the western perimeter, and allowing the army to directly attack the Wushuang camp is obviously more reasonable and convenient. As for the odds of victory, it was not within the scope of concern for anyone. This battle tonight, Long Mountain was sure to win. Therefore, Li Xuandu's words immediately received unanimous agreement from everyone, including Li Xuanling. She slightly narrowed her eyes, looked across at the giant stones on the perimeter of Wushuang, then turned to Li Xuanping and said, "You just said, there is also a hidden snow path on the northeast side, connecting to the Hankyang camp, and after over an hour it was confirmed that no reinforcements came, right?" When the army was 3 kilometers from Wushuang, Li Xuanping and the other 7, temporarily acting as scouts at cold resistance level, all rejoined the team knowing the battle was about to begin. Li Xuanping nodded and replied, "I can confirm, Yuan Kai and I have been watching the north side. From start to finish only the Hankyang army of 1,000 came." When the Hankyang army of 1,000 appeared on the northeast side of Wushuang earlier, Li Xuanping was baffled. He had been monitoring 3 kilometers north of Wushuang. If a sizable army of 1,000 approached, he would surely notice. But the Hankyang 1,000 seemed to appear out of nowhere. If Great Xia hadn't suddenly shrunk its defense line, he might not have noticed. It wasn't until he returned to report to Li Xuanling and heard from his sister, Li Xuanqiu, about discovering a snow-hidden path in the southeast, that he realized there was likely a snow-hidden path on the northeast side of Wushuang as well. So the second time he returned to the north of Wushuang, he immediately began searching the snowfield, and indeed found it. After discovering the hidden path, he didn't destroy it, just kept watch over it, guarding against any more reinforcements from Great Xia coming through Hankyang. Over an hour later, there were indeed no reinforcements, and he reported this to Li Xuanling upon just returning to the army. Li Xuanling nodded and turned her gaze to Li Xuanqiu. "No follow-up reinforcements from the beehive either, I can confirm that." So it could be basically confirmed that Wushuang currently only had 1,000 Cloud Dragon army, plus at most 3,000 ordinary earth-digging realm soldiers, at most 4,000. As for the logging realm, that could be completely ignored. "The time's about right," informed the army. "Leader Li, long time no see." Just as Li Xuanling was about to issue orders, a voice suddenly broke the silence from the east. Li Xuanyan, Li Xuanxiang, Li Xuandu, and all cold resistance level soldiers of Long Mountain froze at the sound, turning their heads to look east. On the eastern perimeter of the Wushuang giant stone array, at some point, more than 30 figures had appeared, and these 30-plus people were slowly approaching them. Under the snowy night, from this distance, their faces couldn't be seen clearly. It could only be discerned that, except for the one in front dressed in black, all the others were in the signature light gold armor of Great Xia. It's Xia Hong's voice. "There are a total of 33 people. They should all be cold resistance level soldiers from Great Xia." So many. Great Xia's strength is indeed much stronger than Jiayang's. Not just that, Great Xia's base is at Redwood Ridge. These 33 might not even be all their cold resistance level soldiers. They swishing. The moment the voice rang out, the well-organized 3,000 Long-Yu army immediately stood up from the ground, drew their bows, and aimed at the opponent. As the cold resistance level soldiers from Long Mountain whispered among themselves, the opponents slowly moved closer from the perimeter, stopping 400 to 500 meters away. At 400 meters, they were within the visual range of cold resistance level. Once they could see the 33 faces clearly, everyone from Long Mountain, including Li Xuanling, was taken aback, a hint of horror rising in their eyes, their expressions somewhat shaken. It wasn't that they saw something terrifying, but the cold resistance level from Great Xia had arrived. Leading them was their nemesis, Xia Hong. Other familiar faces including Chen Yingyuan, Chen Yingba, Peng Bo, and Wu Tianxing, whom they recognized, were also there. Yuan Dao, Qiu Peng, and others from Hankyang Gourd Valley while rescuing Xia Hong were also still in their memory. Chapter 717, Chapter 294, Empty-Handed with Belated Realization Part 2. Everyone's expressions were shaken due to the unfamiliar faces among the familiar ones. Why are the cold resistance level elites of Great Xia all so young? Most of them look like they're just in their early 20s, don't they? Except for Chen Yingyuan and the other 3, there seemed to be very few over 30. This gathering of geniuses is unbelievable, isn't it? From numbers to names, and then to individuals. The understanding of Long Mountain about Great Xia's cold resistance levels was actually not much. Besides Qiu Peng, who previously visited Longyu Army Camp, the ones met at the Yangluo base like Yuan Dao and Yuan Cheng, and those encountered in Gourd Valley, the others were very unfamiliar to them. Earlier, during Qiu Peng's envoy trip to Longyu Army Camp, Long Mountain had a misunderstanding because Qiu Peng's age in his early 20s was too striking, and Li Xuanling and some others thought he was a descendant of some important figure in Great Xia. Now looking at this group before them, they finally realized that Great Xia has so many cold resistance levels around Qiu Peng's age. Even those a bit older than him don't seem to surpass 40. Long Mountain dispatched more than 50 cold resistance levels tonight, with an average age easily over 40. However, among Great Xia's 33, the oldest seems to be Peng Bo and Chen Yingyuan, the old acquaintances of Longyu. Age implies potential and talent. Everyone understands this logic. Instantly, including Li Xuanling, all of Long Mountain's cold resistance levels turned incredibly grave. They're scared by the age. Seeing the grave expressions of Long Mountain's people, Xia Hong immediately realized. It makes sense. Tonight almost all of Great Xia's cold resistance levels were present. There was no need to mention the young ones like Xia Chuan, Yuan Cheng, Lin Kai, Lu Yang, Yue Feng, Su Ning, Liu Yuan. Even the three brothers Luo Yuan, Zhao Long, and the two brothers Ying Xuan, who were almost 30, seemed extremely young compared to Long Mountain's group mostly over 40. Xia Hong shook his head slightly, not putting this matter to heart, and led his people forward, stopping about 300 meters from Longyu Army. 300 meters was roughly the range limit of a 30-stone strong bow. Leader Xia, why don't you dare to go further? Li Xuanling, who had been silent, saw Xia Hong and the others halt, and mocked with a smile. Xia Hong looked up at her, raised an eyebrow slightly, and smiled. Long Mountain's blades are too sharp. Naturally, I must proceed with caution. Hope Leader Li won't mind. She intended to provoke Xia Hong, but who would have thought Xia Hong would respond like this, making Li Xuanling feel as if her punches landed on soft cotton, her expression faltering. Leader Li, Great Xia is not Long Mountain's #1 enemy, at least not at the current stage. You should know this, right? Xia Hong had no interest in bickering with Li Xuanling, asking this question as his gaze slowly moved towards Li Xuanxiang behind her. Like Zhou Yuan and the others, nothing seemed abnormal about Li Xuanxiang, and when Xia Hong looked at him, there was no emotion in his eyes, only hatred and anger like the other cold resistance levels of Long Mountain. Unjustly seizing our materials, slaughtering our new army, ambushing the Blood Guard army, severely injuring Leader Hu, imprisoning hundreds of our Longyu soldiers and more than 10 cold resistance levels. And yet, Great Xia isn't our #1 enemy. Leader Xia, you really know how to joke. Li Xuanling raised her voice as she spoke, clearly aiming her words at the 3,000 Longyu soldiers behind her. She paused before sharply rebuking. Xia Hong, the fires of Longyu are all due to your Great Xia. Long Mountain never wished to ignite a war. If you obediently hand over all Long Mountain's Zhejiang captives, then lead Great Xia out of Longyu and swear never to invade again, we can avoid tonight's battle. How about it? Although Li Xuanling concealed it well, Xia Hong saw clearly that when he looked at Li Xuanxiang just now, her eyes flickered slightly. So as he expected, Li Xuanling was aware all along that Li Xuanxiang was connected to White Dugu. Yet to oppose Great Xia and maintain Long Mountain's supremacy, she still chose to turn a blind eye, allowing White Dugu to have its way. Xia Hong looked at Li Xuanling, anger rising in his heart, and sneered, Great Xia has no precedent of handing over captives. Avoid tonight's battle. You're so sure the 3,000 Longyu soldiers can pin us down. Li Xuanling did not respond verbally, but signaled with her eyes to her three brothers. The three of them understood implicitly. Li Xuanyan brandished a large knife, Li Xuanxiang wielded a spear, and Li Xuandu drew a longsword, all pointing their weapons at Xia Hong, and shouted angrily, Kill! The 3,000 Longyu soldiers, also wielding strong bows, shouted in unison, Kill, kill, kill! With the physical prowess of Ice Abyss humans, even if only 3,000 Logging Realm shouted together, the noise would be extremely shocking, let alone the 3,000 Longyu soldiers. Each of their basic strengths exceeded 30,000 pounds, and some even began to reach the earth-digging realm limit of reshaping skin, shouting together, creating a force far beyond ordinary imagination. Boom! The air current generated by their shouting alone altered the snowflakes within a kilometer radius, and the intense murderous intent nearly solidified, pressing eastwards towards the Wushwang giant stone camp with an intimidation that reached its peak. Swoosh! The fierce airflow rushed forward. It's undeniable. Even Xia Chuan and the other cold resistance levels of Great Xia, including Xia Hong, had their expressions turned significantly graver. This was the momentum of an elite army, the more numerous the more terrifying. Chapter 718, Chapter 294, Empty-Handed Slow on the Uptake Part 3. The Cloud Dragon army also has quite a presence, but compared to the 3,000 troops from Longyu before us, there is still a significant gap. We cannot confront them head-on. Even for me, once surrounded by these 3,000 men, even if not dead, I would still be severely injured. After being a hegemon for over 40 years, Long Mountain's resources truly make one envious. Xia Hong wore a solemn expression, and just then, Li Xuanling spoke up again. This time, her voice clearly carried a tone of threat. Xia Hong, Wushwang has no barriers. Breaking the surrounding boulders is easy for us. You have only 4,000 people in your camp. It is impossible to fend off my 3,000 Longyu army. I offer you one last chance. The terms I proposed earlier are still valid if you agree now. Li Xuanling, are you planning to persuade Great Xia to withdraw from Longyu with mere words? After repeated persuasion, a strange look appeared in Xia Hong's eyes. But soon he understood Li Xuanling's intentions, his expression slightly tense. This woman is not foolish. Li Xuanling must be aware of the hidden danger of the White Dugu and doesn't want to expend too much vital force on Great Xia. Hence her repeated attempts to resolve the matter without bloodshed, so that Great Xia would exit Longyu. Too bad. In this world, nothing comes so easy. Li Xuanling, I'm curious to see how your 3,000 Longyu army plan to breach Wushwang camp. Whoosh! Before Xia Hong could finish speaking, he suddenly furrowed his brows and retreated abruptly. A terrifying silver blade sliced through dozens of meters of snow from the northern sky, slashing fiercely towards him. Bang! The blade struck the spot where Xia Hong had stood, cleaving the earth open with a groove half a meter wide and 3 to 4 meters long, sending snow fog soaring over 10 meters high. Xia Hong had already retreated over 10 meters away, and Xia Chuan, along with other cold resistance-level warriors, followed suit. Stop wasting breath. Wushwang camp was emptied long ago. Great Xia's troops are retreating via secret paths towards Beehive. He is purposefully stalling for time. Within the snow fog, an urgent and elderly voice rang out. Li Tiancheng, clothed in white and with hair like silver threads, broke through the snow fog and pursued Xia Hong yet again. The cold resistance-level warriors from Long Mountain all froze, yet to react to the news revealed by Li Tiancheng. Advance troops attack. Li Xuanling commanded sharply, her tone clearly carrying a hint of rage. They had all been deceived. Xia Hong never intended to fight at Wushwang against Long Mountain. Instead, he retreated everyone. The 3,000 Longyu army traveled far. They cannot return empty-handed. Let Wushwang be under your management for a few days. I take my leave. Like Li Xuanling and Hu, Li Tiancheng's strength had also increased considerably, but stopping Xia Hong was evidently not possible. While entangled with him, Xia Hong created opportunities for escape for Xia Chuan and others. Turning to those yet to catch up, he laughed aloud at Li Xuanling and others and then fled swiftly towards the east. Conniving with a tiger will have bad outcomes. Li Xuanling, heed these 6 words. Those who play with fire will get burned. Li Xuanling had already reached above the giant rocks on the western side of Wushwang camp, gazing at Xia Hong's retreating figure. Her willow-leaf brows trembled slightly with anger, her face full of wrath. Bang! Li Xuanyin led a group to break through the western rock wall, and the massive Longyu army flooded through the gap, looking at the vacant Wushwang camp, filled with fury with no outlet. Thief, Xia Hong the thief, we've all been deceived, all been deceived. Li Xuanling was exceedingly furious, immediately casting her gaze towards Li Xuanping, Li Xuanqiu, Cheng Guang, and Meng Ying, the 4 responsible for scouting enemy positions. These 4 had confidently assured during their recent regrouping that no one had entered or exited Wushwang, particularly Li Xuanping and Li Xuanqiu, who had declared that reinforcements from Beehive and Hankyang were bound for Wushwang. If not for this intel, she wouldn't have been so sure that Great Xia would staunchly defend Wushwang. The four realized their mistake, looking rather flustered, not daring to meet Li Chuanling's eyes. "Leader, shall we pursue directly? They have 4,000 retreating towards Beehive. Their marching speed must be slower than ours. We should be able to catch up." Upon hearing Song Kang's words, Li Xuanling's face grew even angrier. She rebuked. "Do you know exactly how many there are, how far they have fled, or if they have indeed retreated to Beehive? We've already traveled 4 hours. With continued pursuit, what if they set an ambush midway? Not even understanding how to act as a scout, embarrassed to this point and still thinking to pursue, stay put here and rest." Li Xuanling looked down at the 3,000 Longyu army soldiers below. More than half were frozen in place, their morale completely deflated since reaching Wushwang, her expression turning ever gloomier. "Deliberately feigning defense of Wushwang to weaken our morale, Xia Hong. What a cunning thief! Great Xia has only 3 strongholds in Longyu. I want to see where you retreat next." Chapter 719. Chapter 295. Deploying the Beehive, splitting into 2 groups. They came fiercely but ended up with nothing. Li Xuanling must be dumbfounded by now. Who would have thought Wushwang suddenly is completely empty? Not just empty, nearly all movable resources like beast meat, iron ore, and coal stone have been relocated. They've only got a piece of deserted land. 4 hours of rapid marching, those long mountain soldiers are filled with frustration, yet having no place to vent it, they must be furious inside. Ha. Southeast of Wushwang, 3 kilometers away on the snowfield, Xia Hong was gazing at the direction of the Wushwang camp from a distance, while Xia Chuan and others were eagerly discussing behind him. "I have to say, those 3,000 Longyu army soldiers indeed had a terrifying momentum. Those 3 shouts scared me a lot. If our 4,000 men were to defend to death, 80% chance we couldn't hold them. Not 80% but 100%, definitely can't hold them." Upon hearing Yuan Cheng's words, Xia Hong immediately shook his head and offered a different answer. Everyone reacted differently, but if you look closely, you would notice Xia Chuan, Yuan Dao, Chen Yingyuan, and Peng Bo all nodded firmly, clearly agreeing with Xia Hong. Whereas Yuan Cheng, Lin Kai, and Qiu Peng, whose strength were a bit weaker, showed a half-believing expression. This truly reflects the disparity in perspectives caused by different levels of strength. The stronger one's ability, the more clearly one can perceive the might of the 3,000 Longyu army. Conversely, those weaker feel as if there's still hope to block them if they fight desperately. Soon, you all will know exactly how strong those 3,000 Longyu army are. Xia Hong turned his head, staring at Xia Chuan and the others, suddenly adopting a serious expression. This made everyone realize Xia Hong was about to give orders, significantly increasing the gravity of their demeanor. Long Mountain attacked in vain, morale must be vastly diminished. Li Chuanling likely won't continue chasing. But don't let your guard down. Li Tiancheng has already seen our retreat to the Beehive, and Long Mountain surely knows about the southeast Xia Strait Road. It's no surprise they'll soon discover the northeast road connected to Hankyang. Prepare adequately, preventing them from using these roads for marching. Though the 2 straight roads of Wushwang are buried under snow, each extends over 20 kilometers in length, making it unrealistic to hide such large constructions from Long Mountain. Xia Hong even suspected Long Mountain might already be aware. These roads were built by the Great Xia for their own use. Now, with everyone pulled out from Wushwang, it's impractical and wasteful to destroy them, so means have to be left to prevent their use by Long Mountain. "Rest assured, leader, I've got everything arranged." Xia Chuan immediately replied with cupped hands, showing a confident smile. "These days, I'll deploy cold resistance level, constantly watching the Xia Strait Road. If Li Xuanling dares let the Longyu army attempt passage, I guarantee they won't even reach the Beehive." He paused briefly and continued. "Not just the road from Wushwang to Beehive, but also from Beehive to Jing Valley and Jing Valley to Xia City. I've already instructed Yue Feng to take action in advance." Xia Hong raised an eyebrow at this, smiling, thinking quite ahead. "Do you think Long Mountain would bypass the Beehive and attack Jing Valley, or even Xia City directly?" Xia Chuan furrowed his brow, replying, "Not Xia City probably, but Jing Valley is uncertain. If they can't break through the Beehive after a prolonged assault, Long Mountain might get desperate and march south. It's not impossible, is it?" Xia Hong shook his head lightly, chuckling. Li Xuanling isn't foolish. She knows to send people ahead to scout Wushwang. Surely she also sent scouts to analyze Xia City's situation. If I'm right, someone from Long Mountain has likely visited Twin Dragon Valley, witnessed Xia City. Initially puzzled, Xia Chuan quickly figured it out, brightening his eyes. Indeed, Li Xuanling just proposed that our great Xia withdraw from Longyu. She must know Xia City's circumstances, know that no matter what Long Mountain can't breach it, hence the restrictive condition. Xia Hong nodded with a proud gleam in his eyes. Dirty Xia City stands as Great Xia's strongest current reliance. With 3 sides of walls 5 meters thick, 15 meters high, stretching a total of 10 kilometers, plus over 100,000 people within Xia City, forget about 3,000 Longyu army. Even if 10,000 attack, Xia Hong remains fully confident in holding it. As Xia Chuan pointed out, from the aggressive advancement towards Wushwang earlier, as if resolved not to cease until defeating Great Xia, to the recent easy negotiation, proposing merely Great Xia's withdrawal from Longyu for cessation of warfare. This change proves Long Mountain surely received some kind of intelligence. Besides Li Xuanling having sent scouts to investigate Xia City, Xia Hong couldn't think of other reasons. Li Xuanling won't abandon the home turf advantage. She knows that as long as the battle remains in Longyu, there's room for maneuver, but once outside, it's a whole different scenario. After guessing Li Xuanling's move, a gleam of determination flashed in Xia Hong's eyes. Forget attacking Xia City. If she dares lead Longyu army south to Jing Valley, I have the confidence to deliver a decisive blow, erasing Long Mountain from Ice Abyss forever. Upon hearing this from Xia Hong, Xia Chuan and those behind him like Chen Yingyuan instantly became excited, their expressions invigorated. Xia Hong looked up, surveying the crowd behind him, swiftly spotting Yue Feng among them. Yue Feng. Yue Feng immediately stepped forward, saluted with cupped fists, subordinate present. Chapter 720, Chapter 295, Deploying the Beehive splitting into 2 forces 2. How is the situation in Mirror Valley now? After nightfall, 7,000 earth-digging realm from Xia City, led by Zhu Yuan, traveled the direct road through Mirror Valley to gather at the Hive Station. The logging realm from Wushwang, Hankyang, and Hive have gradually returned to Xia City through Mirror Valley. When I just set off for Wushwang, Mirror Valley was already completely empty. Xia Hong nodded, a shock in his expression as he cast his gaze toward Zhu Yuan. What's the current situation in Hive? Zhu Yuan immediately stepped out, cupped his hands and bowed in salute. To report to the leader, the giant stones marking the entrance on Hive's surface have all been cleared. The 7,000 earth-digging realm I led have already entered the underground main zone, along with 2,500 people from Wushwang. Hive currently totals 9,500 people, all entirely earth-digging realm. This group has already begun setting traps in various underground tunnels and building defense fortifications. As per the leader's previous instructions, they are making the underground passages completely unrecognizable from before, expected to be finished by tomorrow night. Xia Hong continued to ask, have you brought enough of all types of beast meat, crystal fruit, and necessary water sources and other supplies? The 7,000 people who departed from Xia City in the first half of the night had their hands full. The total supplies brought over, without affecting everyone's cultivation, I estimate are enough for 30 days, and if only maintaining basic sustenance, it could last up to 3 months. With the conversation reaching this point, although Xia Hong hadn't fully expressed his intentions, the present cold resistance level crowd quickly connected the dots with the actions of Wushwang's 4,000 people tonight and Xia Hong's earlier words. They would soon know how formidable the 3,000 Longyu army would be, and most of them had already realized it. Obviously, Great Xia is preparing to hold the Hive at all costs. Amidst the realization flashing across everyone's faces, Chen Yingyuan, standing behind Xia Chuan, showed no surprise on his face. Right at this moment, Xia Hong also turned his gaze towards him. Chen Yingyuan, you are the initial leader of Hive, most familiar with the situation in the underground station. I'll ask you one last time, with 9,500 earth-digging realm plus 25 cold resistance level, under the full command of you and Xia Chuan, do you have confidence in holding the Long Mountain army? Chen Yingyuan's expression turned serious. He bowed and declared in a loud voice, rest assured, leader. The Hive main zone is buried over 100 meters underground. Just finding it will consume significant efforts from Long Mountain, and even if they manage to find it, they won't be able to break through. All walls of the underground main zone have been poured with iron extract by 3 generations of hive. The weakest points are 10 meters thick. Even if Li Tiancheng personally takes action, attempting to break through is wishful thinking. Other than attacking from the Iron Gate, Long Mountain has no other method. With 9,500 Earth-digging realm lying in wait, as long as we respond appropriately, holding the Long Mountain army for several months is definitely possible. Upon hearing Chen Yingyuan's speech, Xia Hong nodded, a trace of pride flashing in his eyes as he directly said, "You don't have to hold for several months, just 15, no, 10 days at most, and I can make Li Xuanling obediently withdraw his army from Hive." The crowd immediately showed a sudden expression, then unconsciously glanced northward. From today onward, Hive matters will be handled by Xia Chuan and Chen Yingyuan. I will not intervene further. Only when encountering an unsolvable issue can you send someone to the north to report to me, though I hope you won't need to summon me, understand. Xia Chuan and Chen Yingyuan's expression turned serious as they both nodded heavily. Xia Hong then looked around at the dozen or so people, speaking sternly. It said that Great Xia is now at war with Long Mountain, risking with a smaller force against a larger one, which isn't ideal. But since Li Xuanling has already knocked on the door, Great Xia shouldn't back down. A Long Mountain so large, it's impossible for the Li family to monopolize it. There's a way to risk with a smaller force against a larger one. I don't need you to fight desperately. Your task is to firmly hold Hive, avoid excessive casualties, and delay Li Xuanling's army at Hive for a few days. If this battle is successful, Great Xia will be able to establish firmly in Longyu from now on, and perhaps even overthrow the Longshan Li family in one fell swoop, directly engulfing Longyu's 13,000 square kilometers of land, turning the majestic Long Mountain to the east into Great Xia's hunting ground entirely. Engulfing Longyu's 13,000 square kilometers of land, turning the majestic Long Mountain to the east into Great Xia's hunting ground entirely. Upon hearing this final segment, Xia Chuan was thoroughly invigorated. He immediately cupped his hands and bowed towards Xia Hong, speaking solemnly. "Rest assured, leader, we will certainly hold Hive at all costs and quietly await the leader's good news." Chen Yingyuan and the other dozen or so people immediately followed suit, simultaneously cupping their hands in salute towards Xia Hong, unanimously declaring, "We will certainly hold Hive at all costs and quietly await the leader's good news." "Good, return to Hive and prepare. Li Xuanling will certainly rush to advance to Hive after boosting the morale, and then it will be up to your performance." Xia Chuan nodded heavily, being the first to turn and leave, followed closely by the dozen or so people as they swiftly turned and followed him, all heading southeast towards Hive. Standing at his original spot, Xia Hong stared at Wushwang for a few minutes, coldly chuckled twice, then turned and headed towards the snowy plains north. Li Tiancheng, with such high seniority, even knew to personally investigate the movements of Wushwang's army. Unfortunately, his luck was bad. He only saw a large number of troops heading to Hive, but missed my other troop heading towards Hanqiang. Of course, saying Li Tiancheng is unlucky not to see is merely a joke. He had long anticipated that there would be people from Long Mountain overlooking, so when the last batch of people headed southward retreated to Hive, he purposefully made a big commotion, which is the reason Li Tiancheng discovered. Xia Hong's eyes flickered slightly. Long Mountain probably never dreamed that Great Xia, with only 1,000 cloud dragon army, would still dare to divide forces at this critical juncture. If it weren't for Hive Station's naturally advantageous solid defensive perimeter, I wouldn't have such courage, but since it's there, it should be made use of. The solid iron walls poured by 3 generations, even Xia City's existing black stone wall, is nothing but larger scale, and in terms of defensive capability, probably can't even compare to Hive's underground space. Xia Hong was fortunate upon learning the Hive underground main zone's unique structure, thankful that Zhejiang struck first when Chen Yingyuan wasn't present, catching Hive off guard, ultimately allowing Great Xia to benefit. Otherwise, considering the Hive underground space's situation, even if he personally led an attack, there would be absolutely no chance of taking it down. With such strong defensive capability, coupled with Chen Yingyuan as the initial leader well-versed in the underground space, 9,500 earth-digging realm, and 20 cold resistance levels, defending against 3,000 Longyu army is certainly more than enough. 10 meters thick iron wall, also buried underground, almost impossible to break directly by manpower unless they clear a large stress point with Li Tiancheng leading a dozen cold resistance levels to act together. There's a chance, but doing so would take significantly more time. If Long Mountain opts for this route, it would be preferable. Water attack is impossible. Even if there's water surrounding Hive, Li Xuanling wouldn't dare lead troops to mess with it. Fire attack has some promise, but Chen Yingyuan is well informed of Hive's structure and has countermeasures, so it's useless. Hive, this pure iron underground space, is truly difficult to conquer. If it were exposed on the surface, simply setting it alight would suffice, but it happens to be buried deep underground, not only with astounding thickness, but due to being poured with iron extract, the entire barrier is seamless, with almost no other entrances besides the main gate. Basically akin to a massive sphere buried over 100 meters underground, with a diameter of 3 kilometers and wall thickness exceeding 10 meters, poured from iron extract. 3 generations, Chen Yingyuan's ancestors were truly single-minded, fearing death so much. The amount of iron extract used for pouring is probably beyond measure, and Hive's slow development might be due to expending all iron resources on this. Xia Hong chuckled twice before shaking his head, thankful for Chen Yingyuan's ancestors' efforts. Otherwise, apart from exiting Longyu, there really would have been no other option. Hail the leader. Although his mind was occupied, Xia Hong didn't halt his steps, walking 10 kilometers north when a familiar voice suddenly sounded ahead. Seeing it was Chen Yingba, Xia Hong's face immediately broke into a smile, spotting a severed direct road entrance behind him. His eyes brightened as he inquired, "Has the army emerged?" Chen Yingba cupped his hands and responded, "They've long emerged from the direct road. Director Yuan ordered me to lead a battalion of soldiers to set the third trap here." He led the main force, continuing northward. As Xia Hong spoke, he headed toward the direction of the direct road, seeing below the entrance there were over 100 Cloud Dragon army soldiers, clutching bundles of small fire torches, hidden beneath the snow on both sides of the direct road. They soon began repairing the direct road again, his eyes flashing with a glint of brilliance. Accelerate the pace, once done quickly, catch up with the main force north. Subordinate obeys. Chen Yingba cupped his hands in agreement, immediately rushing below the direct road entrance, urging the soldiers to quicken the pace in one hand, while personally lending a hand to assist everyone. Chapter 721, Chapter 296, Keen Instincts Rallying the Troops by Qia Cheng's Cunning Scheme. The 48th year of Longyu, June 22. At the first light of dawn, southeast of Wushuang, at the entrance of the Xia Straight Road, Li Xuanling looked into the depths of the passage, her brows furrowed, saying nothing. More than 10 people from Long Mountain behind her were also staring quietly into the dark depths, clearly waiting for something. Tab tab tab. Soon, a hurried footstep echoed from within the passage. Everyone suddenly came to attention, immediately raising their heads to look over. The person coming was Meng Ying, who was obviously in a hurry. Seeing Li Xuanling, he rushed over and cupped his hands, saying, "Leader, the entire tunnel stretches for a length of 23 kilometers, with the other side's exit less than 2 kilometers west of Hive Station, almost entirely buried under snow, definitely hard to find without careful attention. No wonder Xia Hong could withdraw all the people from Wushuang right under our noses without us noticing. You're lucky it was just withdrawing the people unnoticed." Li Xuanling's expression slightly darkened as she continued. "With this tunnel, the marching speed of Great Xia is more than 10 times ours at Long Mountain. The 4 hours we took to march from Songyuan last night would have been enough for Great Xia to secretly move all their earth-digging realm to Wushuang." Thank goodness Xia Hong had no intention of defending Wushuang to the death. Otherwise, we would have foolishly charged thinking we were facing only 4,000 people and ended up paying a doubled price to take Wushuang. Upon hearing this, the scouts Li Xuanping, Li Xuanqiu, and others behind lowered their heads slightly, their expressions rather embarrassed. By now, they had all realized that the false information released by Great Xia last night had fooled them. The 1,000 men coming from Hankyang, and the group pretending to head toward Wushuang while actually withdrawing were intentionally misleading Long Mountain, making them believe Great Xia intended to hold Wushuang. And the 2 groups who brought back these false messages, Li Xuanping and Li Xuanqiu, naturally bore the greatest responsibility. Before dawn, Li Xuanling had already publicly scolded the 2, so she wouldn't say anything more at this moment. How could we not have thought of building a tunnel under the snow? As Li Xuanling was about to speak, Li Xuandu, who had been observing from the side, couldn't help but pat his head and sighed. Seeing everyone immediately turn their heads to look at him, Li Xuandu pointed to the tunnel, his face showing no attempt to hide his admiration as he slowly spoke. I've seen that tunnel in the northeast as well. Great Xia built these two tunnels mostly using nearby wood, with a little iron mixed in for strength. Although this tunnel is over 20 kilometers long, the material used was primarily wood, meaning the cost wasn't high. Not only is the cost low, but the manpower required is minimal. Apart from needing earth-digging realm for foundation work, the rest can be managed by logging realm. The construction isn't complicated, yet the significance is enormous. With these two tunnels, the travel time between Hankyang, Hive Station, and Wushwang is several times shorter, the efficiency of transporting goods doubled, and the army can support each other in a very short time, instantly connecting the three places closely. As if unsatisfied with his explanation, Li Xuandu paused, then continued. Not only is it easy to build, but the maintenance cost is extremely low. Because of the tunnel length, unless it's systematically sabotaged or faces an excessively large beast tide, any potential damage is limited to a small section and can be easily repaired. Moreover, with Ice Abyss's constant snowfall, the tunnel would ultimately be covered by snow regardless of how it's constructed, making it very hard to detect under normal circumstances. Hidden, connected, convenient, low cost in construction and maintenance, even decently defensible, this tunnel considers everything. It's truly exceptional, simply exceptional. All the cold resistance level members from Long Mountain weren't fools. Upon hearing Li Xuandu's words, they immediately realized the importance of the tunnel before them. Even so, they didn't react too much. Li Xuandu also realized that their army had struck out at Wushwang the night before, and the Long Mountain's morale had already been hit, so his words might bolster Great Xia's prestige. After a moment's thought, he continued. But unfortunately, whether Great Xia is too naive or too confident, when they withdrew from Wushwang last night, they didn't destroy this tunnel. If they can use it, naturally we can too. Great Xia used so much effort to build these two tunnels, they end up serving us Long Mountain. Upon hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. Indeed, Xia Hong had given up Wushwang, retreating with 4,000 men to Hive Station. These two tunnels now belonged to Long Mountain, didn't they? The 3,000 Longyu army could conveniently march through the tunnels from Wushwang to Hive Station. Haha, how naive. Just as a mindset of enjoying the hard work of others started to settle, Li Xuanling's cold laugh abruptly interrupted everyone's thoughts. Turning her head toward the tunnel, Li Xuanling said in a serious tone, "Too naive, too confident, you really think so? How much have we suffered at Xia Hong's hands? You think not to destroy the tunnel, leaving it for us, and he wouldn't think of that." Li Xuandu was stunned, but upon realizing, his forehead suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, and he nodded. The leader is right, I was too naive. From the brief encounters with Xia Hong, the depth of his mind was indeed rare. Not destroying the tunnel was likely intentional, and Xia Hong might have already set a trap, just waiting for them to use the straight road. Chapter 722, Chapter 296, Keen Instincts Rallying the Troops by Qia Cheng's Cunning Scheme. The rest of the people on Long Mountain also came to their senses, their expressions slightly sinking. Looking into the depths of the dark tunnel, their eyes showed a lot of alertness. Seeing that everyone had been awakened by her words, the solemnity and alertness on their faces made Li Xuanling's eyebrows furrow slightly. She confidently said, "No need for that. Before dawn, I already said, the more Xia Hong uses his tricks, the happier I am, because it proves that Xia Hong doesn't have the strength to confront us directly, and can only use these unsophisticated tactics to try to contend with the might of Long Mountain's forces." Upon hearing this, everyone's spirits were lifted, and the dismay on their faces instantly diminished a lot. Indeed, after Wushwang's failed attempt last night, Li Xuanling immediately convened them along with the Longyu army to clarify the matter of Great Xia's retreat. She had said these words at the time, almost receiving unanimous agreement from everyone. True, if Great Xia truly had the strength to contend with the Longyu army, they wouldn't resort to such tricks, such as pretending to send reinforcements to Wushwang, or deliberately giving scouts false information to affect Long Mountain's morale. To put it bluntly, isn't it out of fear? Since they're afraid, it proves that Great Xia's military strength in Longyu is inferior to Long Mountain. With such a premise, what is there for them to worry about? Leader, in that case, let's advance into the beehive tonight. Great Xia only has 4,000 men going over. Even with the beehive's people, it wouldn't add up to more than 5,000. There's still no way they can block the Longyu army. Right? The brothers missed their chance last night and have pent-up frustration. They're ready to fight hard at the beehive and completely drive Great Xia out of Longyu. This time Great Xia made a miscalculation. Xia Hong probably thought the beehive was hidden enough underground for us not to find it, which is why he retreated there with his people. Ridiculous. Among the 11 families of Longyu, don't we, Long Mountain, know the situation of each camp? They think they can escape by going into a cave. What wishful thinking. The beehive station is underground, with 29 tunnels leading to the main area. Long Mountain knows all about these once we attack inside, and it's shut the door to fight the dog. Those Great Xia people won't be able to escape even if they wanted to. Everyone spoke one after another about Great Xia retreating to the beehive, each emitting more or less a few cold laughs. Great Xia may not understand what the name of the master of Longyu signifies. Long Mountain's dominance isn't just for show. Over 40 years, the stations of the 11 giant camps below Longyu have long been clearly known by Long Mountain. As long as Great Xia remains in Longyu, they shouldn't expect to find a safe place. However, Li Xuanling still refused everyone's request to advance into the beehive tonight. She shook her head slightly and said, "No rush, we're holding Wushwang. Great Xia only has the beehive and Hankyang as their stations now. As long as they don't retreat from Longyu, they ultimately can't avoid the Longyu army. The urgent task is to first let the 3,000 Longyu army boost morale and minimize the impact of last night's moral defeat so that the subsequent battles can be cleaner and more efficient with fewer casualties. Additionally, there's the matter of the scouts." At this point, Li Xuanling glanced at Li Xuanping and Li Xuanqiu and continued. The beehive station is located about 100 meters underground, with 29 tunnels connecting to the main area. Before preparing to advance this time, we must scout out the situation, confirm whether Great Xia intends to defend the beehive and how many they have defending it. Otherwise, we shouldn't advance rashly. If we get led by the nose and miss the chance again, it'll be a real big joke. Hearing this, everyone immediately nodded in agreement. Tonight my third brother, Meng Ying, Cheng Guang, and I will go together to scout the beehive. All of you stay at Wushwang. I'll send someone to notify you when the army sets off. Understood, my lord. Li Xuanling waved her hand, took one last look at the tunnel, and her expression showed a hint of solemnity. She could sense it. Great Xia was different from any enemy Long Mountain had dealt with before. Just seeing the 2 tunnels in Wushwang revealed a bit of this truth. Xia Hong is not a simple character. In terms of strength, means, cunning, and strategy, he doesn't lose to her, nor to anyone in Long Mountain. In fact, Li Xuanling had always felt that Xia Hong resembled someone very much. Someone whom she had admired since childhood and regarded as a deity. Facing such a person, she had no choice but to muster 12 times the spirit to respond with utmost caution. The formidable Long Mountain legacy left by her father, the vast territory of Longyu, including the lives and futures of hundreds of the Li family's offspring, could very likely hang in the balance of this battle. If defeated, it would be a total loss. Compared to Great Xia, Long Mountain's biggest advantage is the home court play and the 3,000 Longyu army in my hands, aimed at driving Great Xia out of Longyu with minimum costs. Not knowing Xia Hong's next move, the 3,000 Longyu army must not act recklessly. If the 3,000 Longyu army suffers a loss, even with home court advantage, Long Mountain would have no advantage against Great Xia. The final outcome is all too predictable. Li Xuanling frowned slightly and took the crowd back rapidly to the Wushwang camp. She still needs to figure out how to continue addressing the morale problem of the Longyu army. The troops must be ensured of the fullest morale to battle Great Xia. Otherwise, too many losses would be unbearable for Long Mountain. Who knows, as Second Uncle said, whether Great Xia has other forces behind the 3 10-kilometer-long black stone walls. The 48th year of Longyu, June 22nd, the first half of the night. At Baiyuan Camp, Bai Qiacheng, together with his 2 cold resistance levels, stood on the top floor of the main building, looking at the northern entrance of the camp. At the location of the entrance, a large group of people was lining up to move inside. It was visible that this group had attire slightly different from Baiyuan locals, mostly red, and some even wore blood-colored armor, evidently dressed in the previous style of the Zhejiang Blood Guards. "Big brother, are you truly prepared to merge with Zhejiang and join Long Mountain together?" Bai Qiuping looked at the Zhejiang people stepping into the camp, his gaze sinking, and couldn't help but ask Bai Qiacheng in front. Baiyuan had long planned to merge with Zhejiang. Back in April, when there was a rivalry between Zhejiang and Long Mountain, Bai Qiacheng almost died at the hands of Li Xuanchen, and was finally saved by the Blood Guard army, naturally choosing to bring the camp into Zhejiang, joining Hu Hu's side. Subsequent events took a surprising turn, as Great Xia intervened in Longyu, preventing Zhejiang and Long Mountain from an all-out conflict, resulting in Longyu being split into three. Analyzing it carefully, those who suffered the most were actually the 10 families that didn't directly participate in the rivalry. Yang Lu disappeared due to the revival of the deceitful monster. Yu Cheng, Songyuan, and Changning's leaders were killed, all swallowed up by Long Mountain. Hankyang, Beehive, and Wushwang were swallowed by Great Xia. Xiling, Dongyuan, and their Baiyuan were merged into Long Mountain, factually swallowed by Zhejiang. So, from another perspective, it was those 10 families that ended up with the short end of the stick in the three-way rivalry. Things that followed became even stranger. Zhejiang wants to ally with Long Mountain to deal with Great Xia. Regarding the 800 sets of war armor, Baiyuan was well aware. Who would have thought Great Xia would strike first, not only destroying the new Longyu army, seizing the war armor but also crushing the Blood Guard army, capturing several cold resistance levels from Zhejiang, and nearly killing Hu Hu. Now Hu Hu plans to bring Zhejiang into Long Mountain. If Zhejiang's merging, Baiyuan, which had previously merged into Zhejiang, has even less reason to worry. Bai Qiuping's dissatisfaction stems from here. They first merged with Zhejiang, and now have to follow Zhejiang to merge with Long Mountain. Such drifting along with the tide feeling is extremely frustrating. Of course, the most crucial point is the current strength of Zhejiang. Hu Hu is heavily injured, the Blood Guard army is gone, and Zhejiang only has a bit more cold resistance level than Baiyuan. There's no need for them to join Zhejiang's side to merge. Instead of becoming a bargaining chip for Hu Hu to merge into Long Mountain, it would be better to enter Long Mountain under Baiyuan's name. In terms of treatment and future position in Long Mountain, it would obviously be much better. Bai Qiuping could instantly see through his brother's thoughts and said with a smile, "Who said we're merging with Zhejiang?" Bai Qiuping's attention was immediately sharpened upon hearing this. "Let the Zhejiang people go to Long Mountain first. We Baiyuan are not part of them. I'll soon go to see Leader Li to discuss our Baiyuan joining." Chapter 723, Chapter 297, Hu Jing's Unusual Behavior, Hu Kong's Decision. In the 48th year of Longyu, June 22, after midnight. On the snowy plains west of the White Abyss camp, a long line of about 5,000 to 6,000 people slowly moves toward the west. The front of the queue is filled with young and strong men, the middle with the elderly and women and children, and the back with over 1,000 members of the hunting team clad in iron armor and carrying longbows, with an overall order that clearly indicates a standard camp migration procession. If one looks closely, one would notice among the armored members of the hunting team at the back, very few are wearing blood-colored armor. Anyone familiar enough with the 12 families of Longyu can immediately recognize by the blood-colored armor that this migrating team belongs to the Zhejiang camp. Second uncle, aren't the people from White Abyss migrating with us to Long Mountain? At the very end of the procession, Hu Kong looked back at the White Abyss camp, his brows slightly furrowing, and gently asked his second uncle Hu Jing beside him, his demeanor very respectful. Like Long Mountain being primarily led by the Li family, Zhejiang is dominated by the Hu family, but compared to the Li family, the Hu family descendants are obviously much more promising. Zhejiang has a total of 24 cold resistance level individuals, and among them, the Hu surname accounts for 16, nearly 70%. Hu Jing was already over 80, his hair was gray, his features appeared decayed, very much like someone who wouldn't survive beyond the coming year. He was a sibling of Hu Luan, father of Hu Hu, and the highest status surviving member of the Zhejiang Hu family. In the Ice Abyss world, seniority doesn't count for much. It's mainly about strength. Hu Kong knew well that, although his second uncle Hu Jing seemed old, his strength was definitely not lacking. Even the eldest brother Hu Hu treated him with great reverence in daily affairs, and any important camp decisions would first seek his opinion. Hu Jing was dressed in a date-colored cloak, and his white beard slightly trembled, his movements seemed somewhat cumbersome. Upon hearing Hu Kong's question, he turned to gaze at the white abyss camp, his murky gaze flickering with a trace of coldness, and he whispered, "Why should they migrate with us? White abyss is not of our family." Upon hearing this statement, Hu Kong's expression froze. White abyss had already merged into Zhejiang in April. Bai Qicheng even led people personally to Ping Valley to pay respects to Hu Hu, and during the tense standoff with Long Mountain, the Blood Guard army directly stationed at White Abyss. But soon, Hu Kong understood his second uncle's meaning, his expression turning cold, and he replied, "Bai Qicheng intends to betray. Zhejiang is no more. What water is there to betray? Everyone has to go to serve the Li family as dogs in the future. Bai Qicheng isn't excessive in merging their camp name into Long Mountain for more benefits." Given his age, Hu Jing was not surprised by such opportunistic behavior. After whispering his thoughts, seeing Hu Kong still looking aggrieved, he smiled and shook his head, saying, "No need to be so angry. Times change, Zhejiang malfunctioned so much, it's only realistic." He paused, sighed, and continued. 800 sets of 100 forged level armor were robbed. The Blood Guard army nearly annihilated. Hu Ming, Hu Bing, Hu Ying, Lin Yi, Hu Tong, Hu Quan, Zhang Qingyuan, Lu Yin, Hu Ming, Wang Lai, almost half of Zhejiang's cold resistance level individuals were captured by Great Xia, lives unknown. Even the leader himself was severely injured, almost perished. With Zhejiang's current condition, let alone by Qicheng, I estimate even Yu Bin from Xiling might start having ideas, and only because Dongzhang was in the east, early on merging into Zhejiang. Otherwise the east side absolutely would regret too. Upon hearing Hu Jing mentioning Zhejiang's recent massive losses and those captured by Great Xia, whose statuses remained uncertain, Hu Kong clenched his fists, his face full of hatred and anger towards Great Xia. Why still hold hate for Great Xia? Of course, the Zhejiang Hu family foundation ruined overnight, all because of Great Xia. Xia Hong is despicable and shameless. I wish I could eat his flesh, gnaw his bones. The leader takes us to merge into Long Mountain. Isn't it precisely to borrow Long Mountain's power to seek revenge on Great Xia? Zhejiang reached this state all due to Great Xia's actions. How could he not hate? Not only him, but no one from Zhejiang doesn't hate Great Xia to the core. Borrowing Long Mountain's power to avenge doesn't sound wrong, but... Hu Jing paused and then continued. The most important reason is that Zhejiang only has this path left. Not merging into Long Mountain, the final result is either being annihilated by Long Mountain or by Great Xia, understand? Hu Kong suddenly fell into silence, not speaking for a long time. He wasn't stupid. The moment the Blood Guard army was completely wiped out last night, including him, Zhejiang's other cold resistance level individuals had already realized this fact. That's why they urgently decided to merge with Long Mountain. He couldn't understand why Hu Jing said these words at this moment. Especially earlier when asked if he still hated Great Xia, Hu Jing clearly used a questioning tone. "Second uncle, are you disagreeing with the leader's decision to merge into Long Mountain?" Upon hearing Hu Kong's query, a glimmer of light flickered in Hu Jing's eyes, but he promptly nodded openly, giving a definite answer. "Indeed, last night when I went toward Long Mountain, I did not agree with Hu Hu's decision, and merging into Long Mountain, in my view, is not as good as submitting to Great Xia." "How can that be, second uncle? Your muddled Long Mountain has over 50 cold resistance level experts, 3,000 Long Yu army, tens of thousands in the earth-digging realm. How can a foreign power like Great Xia contend with them? Moreover, Great Xia wiped out the Blood Guard army, killed so many of us, and captured so many cold resistance level individuals. Xia Hong even severely injured the leader. Absolutely impossible to submit to them." Hu Kong interrupted Hu Jing furiously, momentarily forgetting he was addressing an elder. His tone even carried hints of reprimand. Chapter 724, Chapter 297, Hu Jing's unusual behavior, Hu Kong's decision. Hu Jing's expression darkened slightly, but he did not get angry. After shaking his head, he merely said lightly, "Adding flowers to the brocade, no matter what, cannot compare to sending charcoal in the snow. Once you understand this principle, you will know." Hu Kong's face froze, seemingly unable to come up with any rebuttal to Hu Jing's words. But he quickly reacted, his expression slightly tense. "Second uncle, is it because of Hu Bing and Hu Quan that you want to surrender to Great Xia?" Apart from this, Hu Kong really couldn't think of any other reason for Hu Jing to have the thought of surrendering to Great Xia. Hu Jing has only two sons, Hu Bing and Hu Quan. Now both have been captured by Great Xia. He is worried about their safety and wants to surrender to Great Xia in exchange for his sons' lives, which indeed makes sense. Of course, but I am doing it not only for my sons, but also for all of you. Hu Jing did not deny and continued solemnly. You are so confident that Long Mountain can defeat Great Xia, but have you ever thought why Long Mountain is willing to provide the Holy Sun Pill and 800 sets of armor to form an alliance with us to fight against Great Xia? Hu Kong's expression tightened. Hu previously decided to ally with Long Mountain, primarily because of the Holy Sun Pill and 800 sets of 100 level armor sent by Long Mountain. Faced with such a high price from Long Mountain, coupled with the fact that Xia Hong already had antagonism with Great Xia because of the beehive, everyone including Hu at the time agreed to the alliance with Long Mountain. At this moment, being so suddenly reminded by Hu Jing, Hu Kong finally reacted. The high price offered by Long Mountain is already intriguing in itself. On the surface, Long Mountain's strength far exceeds Great Xia. Even if Xia Hong and Great Xia join forces, they may not be able to fight them. Do they need to offer such a high price to enlist their help against Great Xia? Long Mountain must know more about Great Xia than we do. They know it's difficult to fight Great Xia alone, which is why they offer such a high price to enlist our help. This means that Great Xia's true strength has already started to make Long Mountain afraid. Such a simple fact is right in front of you, yet Hu and all of you were blinded by anger and could not see it. Hu Kong's face grew increasingly gloomy. His gaze began to wander. It was evident he had started to believe Hu Jing's words. Leader, is it really a mistake? He was even starting to doubt Hu's decision to join Long Mountain. Hu Kong, your brother Hu Ming is now also in Great Xia's hands, not to mention other cousins. Joining Long Mountain means standing in opposition to Great Xia completely. Have you ever thought about what you would do if Great Xia used your brother's life to threaten you? Hu Kong's father passed away early, and he was almost raised single-handedly by his elder brother. His feelings for Hu Ming are naturally profound, and when Hu Ming went missing at Beehive, he was worried every day. Later, when it was found out he was captured by Great Xia, he immediately requested Hu to send someone to Great Xia to negotiate, hoping to exchange supplies for hostages, but Great Xia directly refused without even listening to the terms Xia Hong offered. At this moment, Hu Jing's intention couldn't be more obvious. If Xia Hong could turn to Great Xia, his brother, including the 9 cold resistance level experts previously captured, could all return alive. No. Hu Kong's expression suddenly hardened. He turned to look at the already distant migrating group behind him and then stared at Hu Jing, stating earnestly, "Second uncle, aren't you acting a bit off today? Joining Long Mountain was the leader's decision, and it was unanimously agreed upon by everyone. Now you're saying these things." Footsteps. Suddenly, a sound of footsteps echoed from the flank, interrupting Hu Kong's words. "Who's there?" Hu Kong's expression shook, and he angrily shouted as he drew his large knife from his waist. Then, turning to look, he found a young man in black clothing, who had unknowingly approached within 20 or 30 meters of him without making a sound. The young man was of youthful appearance, carrying a slender, long knife, his black clothing of obvious quality. Most crucially, he walked through the snow without leaving even a trace, not even a subtle footprint. Slender knife, black clothing, your Great Xia leader, Xia Hong. Although Hu Kong had never seen Xia Hong, from his attire, weapon, and incredibly deep strength, he deduced his identity. Footsteps. Even though Hu Kong had already drawn his weapon, Xia Hong was unfazed, continuing to walk forward until he was no more than 3 or 4 meters away. Then, turning, he looked at Hu Jing and smiled. It seemed Senior Hu was unable to convince Hu. Hu Jing bowed respectfully to Xia Hong and said solemnly, "Subordinate greets the leader. Hu is stubborn, determined to join Long Mountain, and I indeed failed to persuade him. According to Lord Zhao Long's instructions, I have already separated all members of Xia Hong. Those loyal to Hu among the cold resistance level, as well as some die-hard followers from Earth-Digging Realm, their families are all in tonight's migrating group, totaling about 5,000 or 6,000 people." After saying this, he pointed at the migrating group behind, indicating to Xia Hong. Xia Hong nodded slightly, and then turned his gaze to Hu Kong. Hu Kong at this moment completely understood that his respected uncle Hu Jing had already betrayed and secretly sided with Great Xia, even organizing tonight's migrating group after intentionally separating them. His face alternated between redness and pallor, his expression shifting several times. Realizing Xia Hong was watching him, he swiftly retreated dozens of meters before angrily speaking to Hu Jing. Zhao Long was the one who previously came from Great Xia to Long Mountain. Second uncle, you were involved with Great Xia as early as April. He suddenly remembered that, after Great Xia took over Wushwang in April, they had sent a special envoy to Long Mountain, and that envoy's name was Zhao Long. Hu Jing shook his head in denial. Not at all. In April, I merely chased after Zhao Long to inquire about the situation of Hu Bing and Hu Quan. As I said, what truly made me decide to side with Great Xia is the current situation in Longyu. Joining Great Xia is the best path forward. At this point, even if Hu Kong were foolish, he realized the truth. 10 cold resistance level experts from Zhejiang were captured by Great Xia. Hu, along with Hu Ning, Wang Peng and Lu Yan are in Long Mountain. The camp originally had only 10 cold resistance level experts, excluding himself and Hu Jing. Of the remaining 8, 5 have already gone to Long Mountain. Now, upon careful consideration, those 5 are indeed die-hard followers of Hu. The remaining 3 who didn't go likely have already been persuaded. This means that Hu Jing deliberately accompanied him to escort the migrating group tonight, in an attempt to persuade him to join Great Xia as well. Hu Kong, listen to my advice. Your elder brother is living well in Great Xia. As long as you join me in siding with Great Xia, you can reunite with him immediately. Hu Jing likely felt that Hu Kong, the younger generation, had a high potential to be persuaded, which is why he kept urging him non-stop. Even though Hu Kong showed little reaction, he never stopped. Xia Hong, however, stood aside silently, saying nothing, and as Hu Kong continued not to respond, Xia Hong's expression became somewhat impatient. In Xia Hong's eyes, someone with merely the strength of a 3-maned cold resistance expert wasn't worth much effort to persuade. He stood there mostly to give face to Hu Jing. Hu Kong, do you think each of the 5,000 or 6,000 people tonight are walking freely? If the leader wished, he could completely seize these ordinary people and use them to hold us all hostage. But instead of doing that, he ordered me to distinguish those who are willing to join Long Mountain, along with their families, and let them calmly head to Long Mountain. The leader shows such generosity. What more is there to worry about by following him? This statement made Hu Kong's expression freeze. He looked up at Xia Hong, his gaze rising with complexity. Indeed, Hu Jing's words were not wrong. Great Xia could easily capture the families of all cold resistance level experts with just a few more cold resistance level experts and Hu Jing's cooperation, making it easy to seize their family members, and then using them as hostages would be even more certain. But Great Xia hasn't done that. After much deliberation, Hu Kong clearly had an answer. He clenched his fists and loudly asked Xia Hong, "May I ask Leader Xia, if I do not surrender to you tonight, will my brother Hu Ming be put in danger?" Xia Hong was looking towards the eastern direction, but upon hearing Hu Kong's question, he waved his hand without hesitation and said, "Go to Long Mountain. Rest assured I won't kill Hu Ming." Hu Kong was taken aback upon hearing this, and when he saw Xia Hong not even bothering to turn his head while saying it, his expression was somewhat awkward but more complex. After much contemplation, he finally bowed to Xia Hong with clasped fists. "Thank you, Leader Xia. Should the opportunity arise, Hu Kong will surely repay you." After saying this, he saluted Xia Hong and promptly turned to run westwards after the migrating group. Chapter 725. Chapter 298. Hu Jing surrenders, White Abyss falls, Zhejiang changes its flag. Hu Kong is 26 this year, has a superior battle body, and his mid-stage cold resistance cultivation already possesses the strength of 4 manes, making him the most talented among the Hu family's peers. Unfortunately, even Hu back then was nothing more. On the snowfield, Hu Jing sighed slightly at Xia Hong, regretting his failure to convince Hu Kong to pledge allegiance to Great Xia. No matter, his heart is set on Hu, more persuasion will be futile. What about the 3 remaining cold resistance level individuals in Zhejiang and others? How are they? A 26-year-old with a superior battle body could at most earn a commendable evaluation from Xia Hong. He waved his hand at Hu Jing, smiling as he inquired about the status of other individuals from Zhejiang. Successfully winning over Hu Jing was an unexpected delight brought by Xia Chuan. On April 17th, after Xia Chuan captured Wushwang, he sent Qiu Peng and Zhao Long to the Longyu Army Camp in Ping Valley, respectively, to test the attitude of Long Mountain and Zhejiang towards Great Xia. Zhao Long's mission to Ping Valley went smoothly, but on his return journey, he was targeted by Hu Jing. Hu Jing probably intended to capture Zhao Long and use him as leverage to force Great Xia to hand over Hu Bing. At the time, Zhao Long had just broken through the cold resistance level, and his basic strength was less than 3 manes. How could he possibly oppose Hu Jing with 15 manes of strength at the peak of cold resistance? Without the slightest suspense, Zhao Long was caught directly. The subsequent development was quite intriguing. Hu Jing, without going through Hu, independently brought Zhao Long to Wushwang to visit Great Xia, indicating his intention to exchange prisoners. Xia Chuan, who welcomed him at that time, keenly sensed that Hu Jing was likely not in alignment with Hu, so he happily took him back to Xia City to experience the grand spectacle of Great Xia, allowing him to see Hu Bing, unharmed but with freedom restricted, afterward directly tried to win him over. At that time, Great Xia, although it had successfully captured Beehive and Wushwang, had not yet absorbed all of Longyu's population. Xia City had only over 40,000 people. Xia Chuan's power was just at 6 manes. Even if he left Hu Jing in awe, these alone could not possibly succeed in persuading Hu Jing. What truly began to sway Hu Jing was a gamble Xia Chuan proposed to him. Senior Hu probably thinks that our Great Xia's limited power, recklessly interfering in Longyu, will end in a dead end. Xia Chuan dares to wager with Senior Hu. Let's bet this time our Great Xia can establish itself in Longyu amid the struggle with Long Mountain and your camp. If I lose, not only Hu Bing, but Hu Ying, Hu Ming, Lin Yi, including all Zhejiang earth-digging realm captured in Beehive, I will let them all go. How about it? And if you win? If I win, Senior Hu needs to do nothing. For this bet, Senior only needs to leave Hu Bing and Great Xia as a witness. If I win, I will release Hu Bing as agreed. How about it? If I gamble and lose, his son will still be handed over to him. If I gamble and win, not only his son but Hu Ming, Hu Ying, Lin Yi, and all earth-digging realm, Xia Chuan will return them all to Zhejiang. This was a win-win bet. Hu Jing, over 80 years old, what hasn't he seen? He immediately realized Xia Chuan already discerned his lack of loyalty to Zhejiang, deliberately using the bet to let him observe Great Xia while trying to win his favor. The key was that Great Xia indeed went all out to buy time. 3 cold resistance level individuals and hundreds of earth-digging realm were wagered. Hu Jing at the time still did not agree, but posed Xia Chuan a question. I captured Zhao Long to exchange prisoners with you. By your words, does this mean you refuse to use Hu Bing to trade him? In Xia Chuan's bet, he mentioned Hu Bing, apparently not intending to use Hu Bing to exchange for Zhao Long, which prompted Hu Jing's question. Great Xia has never exchanged prisoners, nor will it ever in the future. Zhao Long being captured can only accept his fate. Senior Hu, if proposes other material needs, I might consider, but exchanging prisoners is out of discussion. However, I have stated up front, Great Xia values life like gold, especially those at cold resistance level. If Zhao Long suffers any mishap in Senior's hands, not only Hu Bing, but Hu Ming, Hu Ying, Lin Yi, including the hundreds of other earth-digging realm, will all accompany him in death. I, Xia Chuan, always keep my word. According to Xia Chuan himself, Hu Jing was intimidated by these words, not only released Zhao Long, but agreed to let Hu Bing stay to complete the bet. Xia Hong shook his head slightly, for he is not as simple-minded as Xia Chuan. An 80-year-old man who has weathered countless storms, how could he be intimidated by mere harsh words? Hu Jing clearly clashed with Hu and had long contemplated betraying Zhejiang. Xia Chuan used a prudent bet to gamble on Great Xia's future performance to entice him. Hu Jing agreed as expected. Simply put, if Great Xia performs well in Longyu afterward, he would smoothly betray Zhejiang and side with Great Xia, allowing his son Hu Bing and others from Zhejiang to survive. If Great Xia performs poorly afterward, then Xia Chuan would fulfill the bet and eventually release everyone. The bet was win-win with no loss. How could he possibly refuse? In the following May, Xia Hong learned from the Zhejiang earth-digging realm captives about the conflict between Hu Jing and Hu. 13 years ago, when the former leader of Zhejiang, Hu's father Hu Luan, passed away, he handed the position of leader to his brother Hu Jing. At that time, Hu was still a hostage at Long Mountain. Although called hostage, he was actually the disciple of Li Tianhua. Chapter 726, Chapter 298, Hu Jing Defects, White Abyss Falls, Zhejiang's banner changes, 2. Hu Hu naturally believed that he deserved the position of leader, especially since Li Tianyue was willing to back him, providing both manpower and food, forcing Hu Hu back to Zhejiang and reclaiming the leadership position from Hu Jing. At that time, Hu Hu's strength was actually inferior to Hu Jing's. Hu Jing ultimately yielded, largely due to the pressure from Long Mountain and Li Tianyue. In short, from then on, the grudge between the two was formed. Hu Hu was highly wary of his second uncle, showing only outward respect. When it came to cultivation resources, especially the share of the Jade bone medicine, during the cold resistance level that belonged to Hu Jing's household, it was very little. This is why he was able to rise later and surpass Hu Jing in strength, with most of the cold resistance level members in the camp uniting around him. Ultimately, it was because Xia Chuan threw out a straight hook, which Hu Jing, who harbored rebellious thoughts, deliberately bit onto. The developments in the Great Xia after May naturally caused Hu Jing's internal balance to tilt further, especially after his identity as Hong Xia was exposed. When the Great Xia took over Hanqiang, occupying one-third of Longyu's territory and lured him with the Yangyuan pill, Hu Jing, who already had rebellious intentions, defected from Zhejiang to the Great Xia, as might be expected. While Hu Jing's defection pleased Xia Hong, it also served as a reminder to him to focus on the cohesion of high-level personnel within the camp, as issues with these people would result in consequences far more terrifying than with those in the earth-digging realm. Like the current situation with Hu Jing, an actual member of the Hu clan and Hu Hu's own second uncle, his defection not only caused over half of the cold resistance level in Zhejiang to turn to the Great Xia, but also left behind close to 60,000 people in Zhejiang, nearly 90% of the camp's population. Just because he didn't want to trouble those relatives unwilling to defect from the cold resistance level. Otherwise, the more than 5,000 people tonight could have been detained directly by him, leaving Hu Hu, who is in Long Mountain, no more than a commander without troops. The Great Xia currently has close to 40 cold resistance levels and is continuously increasing, and with Hu Jing's defection, the total will break 50, with more to come. When the numbers increase, a mix starts to form, and then ways must be found to reduce these people's influence on the camp, or else they will suffer significant losses in the future. Thinking about it, it was all in a moment's thought. Hu Jing had more or less figured out that he wanted to join the Great Xia, and his demeanor was much more respectful when answering Xia Hong. He slightly bowed and said, "Rest assured, leader. Hu Xing, Zhang Ying, and Kong Fan have all been persuaded by me, and they are all willing to join the Great Xia with their families. For the remaining over 50,000 people in Zhejiang, I haven't explained to each of them, but once the army moves in tonight, they will naturally understand. In a short time, it's impossible to change the minds of over 50,000 people, and among them, there are definitely many who remain loyal to Hu Hu, and Xia Hong certainly won't blame Hu Jing for that. The human heart is like water. As long as Great Xia's subsequent military actions in Longyu go smoothly, and the lives of these people improve, their mentality will slowly change naturally. But that's a matter for the future. Right now, the most important thing is to fight the battle with Long Mountain well." Hearing Hu Jing mention the army moving into Zhejiang, Xia Hong raised his eyebrows slightly, saying nothing, and merely turned and walked with him towards the east side. They were currently on the west side of White Abyss, and heading east was in the direction of the White Abyss encampment. Hu Jing was initially a bit puzzled, but as they walked east for a while, across some 300 or 400 meters, he saw the site of the White Abyss encampment, and his pupils suddenly contracted. "Release arrows. Brothers, follow me to kill. Break through the White Abyss, kill. Where did this army come from? How could an army come here? This isn't the Longyu army, nor is it the Blood Guard army besides these two. It's the army of the Great Xia. Wasn't Great Xia blocked by Long Mountain at Wushwang? How did they have an army here with us? We can't fight them, simply can't. These iron arrows are too strong. Ours simply can't withstand them. They're all at the earth-digging realm limit. Run, hurry, and run. We can't run, close the iron gate, there's hope. If they break in, the encampment will be finished. Hand over all earth-digging realm, close the iron gate. Quick, everyone push, close the main gate, hurry, hurry, hurry." The northern main gate of the White Abyss encampment was flashing with golden light at this moment, with the sound of charging and killing echoing to the sky. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that those flickering golden lights were actually soldiers clad in light gold armor. This army was roughly 1,000 strong. The front row, about 300 wielding knives over a meter long, had latched onto the iron gate, frantically attacking the defenders around the iron gate. The rear row, about 600, were all armed with strong bows, firing rapidly at the top and sides of the iron gate. Nearly 100 more, wielding various weapons, were climbing upward along the terrain surrounding the iron gate. With the cover of the rear archers, a small portion had already reached the stone platform above the iron gate, attacking those white abyss earth-digging realm trying to close the iron gate. The strongest was the figure at the very back of the stone platform. It was a black-clothed young man holding a broadsword in his right hand and a 4-meter-high banner in his left. He was swinging his broadsword with sweeping strides, almost every swing sending over a dozen earth-digging realm flying left and right. He charged straight to the back of the stone platform this way, and upon seeing the iron gate below not fully closed, he violently plunged the banner in his left hand downward hard. Chapter 727, Chapter 298, Hu Jing Defects, White Abyss Falls, Xia Hong's banner changes 3. A flagpole 7 to 8 meters high was positioned right in the center of the iron gate, with a black banner fluttering in the wind. The character, Xia on the front, together with the golden cloud dragon pattern on the back, suddenly caught everyone's eyes. Scout Camp, charge up the stone platform. Mo Blade Camp, keep advancing. Horizontal Blade Camp, last 10 breaths to shoot arrows, abandon the bows after 10 breaths and rush into the iron gate to protect the banner. The moment Yuan Dao planted the banner behind the iron gate, Liu Yuan's shout echoed from the stone platform. Kill! Charge! The iron gate has fallen, brothers, charge in. As the shouts fell, the front line of 300 soldiers wielding Mo blades seemed as if they had taken a stimulant. They each let out a roar of excitement, raising their Mo blades high and charging madly towards the iron gate. The 6 units of horizontal blade camp soldiers at the back were not to be outdone. Within 10 breaths, they quickly emptied their arrow quivers, then immediately discarded their bows and drew their horizontal blades, surging towards the iron gate like a tide. The first soldier from the Mo blade camp finally charged into the iron gate, only to be met by more than a dozen sharp blades. The people of White Abyss were no fools. Given the importance of the iron gate, over 100 guards were stationed at the back, all with cultivation at the earth-digging realm limit. Their weapons and iron armor were also at the 100 forged level. More than a dozen sharp 100 forged great blades hacked at his body, tearing several gaps in the soldier's iron armor. The immense force pressing down on him caused him to collapse to the ground. If not for someone supporting him from behind, he would have knelt down and been unable to get back up. Only a few gaps, how is this possible? His weapon didn't break either. This. How can his blade be so sturdy? Aren't all of them 100 forged level? Though they nearly brought the soldier to his knees, not one of White Abyss's sides showed a smile. Instead, their pupils trembled violently, their faces aghast. With similar cultivation and equally equipped 100 forged level weapons, the iron armor of the great Xia soldier only had a few breaches after being attacked by over a dozen people. How is this possible? Though all are 100 forged level, the Thunder QE iron armor I wear is not the same as yours. The Mo blade camp soldier sneered, then suddenly lifted his head, grasped his Mo blade and swept it horizontally in front of him, immediately shouting and charging into the iron gate. Kill! Kill! Once the first broke through, the second soon followed. The front line of 300 soldiers wielded large Mo blades. Once one soldier broke through, he could sweep away a large group. As long as they maintained the position for 3 or 4 breaths, more Mo blades would immediately follow. Thus, the defeat of the iron gate began. With the swarming charge of Mo blade camp soldiers inside, in less than a few minutes, they had created a space more than 100 meters wide behind the iron gate. With no further obstruction, the 6 units of horizontal blade camp soldiers also surged in like a tide. Liu Yuan, leading over 100 scout camp elites, had already cleared the stone platform above the iron gate, scattering the earth-digging realm crowd attempting to close the gate. Seeing that the soldiers of the 9 camps below had charged in, he had no more reservations and directly led the scout camp charging down. The main gate is breached. People of White Abyss, listen clearly, surrender and you will not be killed. Liu Yuan, after all, had cultivation at the cold resistance level. With a single forward charge, he could sweep away a large number of people. In less than 4 or 5 breaths, he reached the side of those retreating with earth-digging realm limit cultivation, wielding a great blade to relentlessly harvest their lives while also shouting at them to surrender. Surrender and you will not be killed. Surrender and you will not be killed. Numerous elite members of the scout camp followed him, shouting, "Surrender and you will not be killed," continuously attacking the psychological defenses of the White Abyss people. Where's the leader? Where did the second leader go? They're all in the back, didn't you see? The main building has already collapsed. Those of White Abyss still resisting in their despair pinned their hopes on their leader, Bai Qiacheng. But with a deliberate reminder, they realized the top floor of the main building in the center of the camp had already collapsed. On the collapsed structure, there were 6 figures fighting, among which 2 were being pushed back, none other than the second leader, Bai Qiuping, and the third leader, Wu Ningyuan. Only big leader Bai Qiacheng seemed to have a slight advantage. But the trouble was, the black-clothed man who had just placed the banner on the stone platform was now charging towards the main building where Bai Qiacheng was, with a broadsword in hand. That meant Great Xia would soon have 4 against 3. The camp was broken, and cold resistance level was also completely defeated. White Abyss was finished. Clang! An unknown person was the first to drop their weapon, followed soon by a second and a third. Except for a few die-hard loyalists still hoping for a turn of events on the main building battlefield, more and more people began laying down their weapons and kneeling to the Cloud Dragon army soldiers in surrender. Bai Qiacheng, surrender. The leader hasn't personally taken action, which is giving you a chance. Stubborn refusal will only lead to death in the end. White Abyss has no enmity with Great Xia. Why attack my camp? Stop the nonsense, Bai Qiacheng. If you wish to merge with Long Mountain, you have to accept your fate. I ask you again, surrender or not. Peng Bo, you're dreaming. Long Mountain will eventually destroy Great Xia. Qiuping, Ningyuan, come with me. Before Bai Qiacheng's words settled, and before Yuan Dao could approach, 2 figures from the main building seized the chance to quickly flee towards the west, in the direction of Long Mountain. Only the person fighting Chen Yingba hesitated for a moment, before gritting his teeth and putting down his weapon. Chapter 728, Chapter 298, Hu Jing surrenders, White Abyss falls, Zhejiang changes its banner, Part 4. I am Wu Ningyuan. I am willing to surrender, please show mercy. Chen Yingba suddenly stopped and looked at the escaping Bai Qiacheng and the other, shaking his head with a trace of helplessness in his eyes. Not only Chen Yingba, but Peng Bo, Wu Tianxing, and even the later arriving Yuan Dao, all showed signs of helplessness looking at the escaping Bai brothers. Witnessing this scene, Wu Ningyuan mistakenly thought their helplessness was due to their inability to capture the Bai brothers. But very quickly, he realized he was terribly mistaken. The Bai brothers have already sent their families ahead to Long Mountain. Wu Ningyuan seems like he hasn't sent his families away yet, so he could only surrender. Not far from the west side of the White Abyss camp, Hu Jing explained the reason to Xia Hong with cupped hands, looking at the escaping Bai brothers. Kill them. As you command, sir. Hu Jing agreed with cupped hands. His eyes brightened, and immediately chased in the direction of the 2 escapees. Bai Qiacheng has the strength of 9 manes, Bai Qiuping only 6 manes, while Hu Jing with 15 manes shouldn't find it difficult to kill them both, but capturing them alive would be a bit challenging. Of course, more importantly, he had no intention of capturing the 2 alive. At the beginning of the assault on White Abyss, Peng Bo entered White Abyss with Wu Tianxing and Chen Yingba to discuss with Bai Qiacheng. He disagreed to surrender, leading to the battle. The outcome of the battle in the main building was already evident, yet Bai Qiacheng stubbornly insisted on pledging allegiance to Long Mountain, something that annoyed Xia Hong. Moreover, tonight's event in White Abyss must be temporarily sealed off, or it will affect the upcoming actions if Li Xuanling finds out prematurely. Just right, earlier we had to focus on recruiting, so try not to kill. Now with Long Mountain it's become a showdown. It's time to kill some to cement authority. Otherwise, the cold resistance levels in Longyu might really think Great Xia's temper is weaker than Long Mountain. After pondering for a moment, Xia Hong headed towards White Abyss, quickly arriving at the main building. Greetings, leader. Greetings, leader. Yuan Dao, Peng Bo, Chen Yingba, Wu Tianxing, and Liu Yuan immediately bowed to him first, showing respect. The nearby Cloud Dragon army soldiers processing captives also bowed respectfully. No need for formalities, Rise. Quickly tidy up. Tally up the number of Earth-digging realm captives from White Abyss. Control their families properly. As you command. Liu Yuan immediately replied with cupped hands and swiftly led the soldiers to execute. The commander of the Cloud Dragon army is Xia Chuan, but this time he didn't come. So as the reconnaissance camp commander, he acted as the temporary commander, responsible for all matters. Wu Ningyuan right, knowing to surrender is good. Wu Ningyuan was momentarily stunned, unsure if Xia Hong was praising or mocking him. Helpless, he cupped his hands and bowed. Greetings. Bang, bang. Suddenly, two unknown objects were thrown next to Xia Hong, crashing to the ground with two consecutive loud noises, interrupting Wu Ningyuan's salute. Wu Ningyuan, along with several cold resistance levels and many around the main building, turned to look beside Xia Hong. Upon seeing those two objects clearly, except for Yuan Dao, Peng Bo, and other great Xia individuals who showed no surprise, Wu Ningyuan and those who surrendered from the White Abyss had their pupils shrink suddenly and faces full of horror. The two objects were none other than the Bai brothers who had just escaped. Bai Qiacheng's chest was completely caved in, his eyes wide open, clearly indicating he was killed in a state of extreme terror. Bai Qiuping's death was not particularly gruesome, but a bit strange. His head was completely split open, obviously beaten with a stick, yet his complexion was normal, indicating he had no premonition of his death. Two leaders just died like this. What others were thinking, Wu Ningyuan didn't know, but looking at the two leaders who were far stronger than him, he trembled fiercely and knelt before Xia Hong, respectfully saying, "Subordinate pays respects to the leader." Only now did he understand the helplessness in Peng Bo and others' eyes earlier, and the meaning behind Xia Hong's words. If he hadn't surrendered, he would certainly have become the third corpse on the ground. All right, everyone rise. Peng Bo, Chen Yingba, Wu Tianxing, you three guard around White Abyss, don't let anyone leave. Hu Jing, Yuan Dao, come with me to Zhejiang, let's go. Hu Jing. Upon hearing this name, Wu Ningyuan's pupils trembled. Glancing up, he saw the elder who jumped down from the main building, and his heart began to thump violently. Zhejiang had a traitor. Hu Jing defected to Great Xia. But what about those 5,000 to 6,000 people who traveled through White Abyss to Long Mountain tonight? Xia Hong was taking Hu Jing to Zhejiang, but who was at Long Mountain now? Was Zhejiang about to change flags? Wasn't Li Xuanling leading the army to blockade Great Xia at Beehive? What's going on? The Xia army got to the north, not only taking White Abyss but aiming to capture Zhejiang. What are they up to? Putting aside Wu Ningyuan's thoughts, Xia Hong left with Hu Jing and Yuan Dao, while Liu Yuan completely took over White Abyss. Peng Bo and the others held Wu Ningyuan, guarding around the White Abyss camp boundaries, preventing anyone from entering or leaving freely. Liu Yuan led the Cloud Dragon army to continue investigating the Earth-digging realm population and their families in the camp, clearly making some preparations. Walking along the northeastern snow field of White Abyss, after more than 10 kilometers, they quickly saw the majestic and towering outline of Beiming Mountain. Chapter 729, Chapter 298, Hu Jing surrenders, White Abyss falls, Zhejiang changes allegiance, Part 5. Hiss. Is the height of Beiming Mountain 3 to 4 times that of Twin Dragon Mountain. Unlike Xia Hong, who was seeing it for the second time, Yuan Dao couldn't help but express his amazement upon seeing such a magnificent Beiming Mountain for the first time. Zhejiang has lived in Ping Valley for decades, but no one has ever climbed to the top of Beiming Mountain, so we're not sure exactly how high it is. It should be over 4,000 meters. We're also curious about what might be up there. Even Hu Jing doesn't know, which highlights the mystery of Beiming Mountain. After pondering for a moment, Yuan Dao turned to Xia Hong and said, with Mang Mountain to the north, Twin Dragon Mountain to the east, Long Mountain to the west, and Xing River to the south, we can basically deduce that the overall terrain of Longyu is encircled by mountains on 3 sides, east, north, and west, and cut off by the Xing River to the south. If we can control Long Mountain, we essentially have this entire treasure land in our grasp. In the future, even if other camps have ill intentions towards Great Xia, it would be as difficult as climbing to the heavens. Hearing this, Xia Hong withdrew his gaze from Beiming Mountain and gave Yuan Dao an appreciative look. His first thought upon seeing Beiming Mountain was indeed the same. From a geographical perspective, Redwood Ridge should also belong to Longyu, but due to the barrier created by the Arrow bamboo forest in between, the two places are not easily accessible, which led to them being considered separate territories. As Great Xia now deepens its control over the Arrow bamboo forest, the connection between the two areas is becoming increasingly tighter. It is foreseeable that in the future, the two places will undoubtedly merge completely. For now, the waterways are inaccessible, but taking control of Long Mountain is equivalent to securing the last resource territory of Longyu, bringing almost the entire area under Great Xia's map. By then, with Mang Mountain to the north, Xing River to the south, Long Mountain to the west, and Twin Dragon Mountain to the east, Great Xia will have 4 natural barriers of protection, making it the uncrowned king of Longyu. Other camps planning to attack Great Xia will have no other routes except through the slope on the Xing River north bank, which I previously named Xing Valley Pass. This is an excellent place for the rear. Obviously, Yuan Dao also noticed this. A glint of sharpness flashed in Hu Jing's eyes, as if he also realized it. Xia Hong did not delve further into the subject, instead noting that they were only a few kilometers away from Ping Valley, and changed the topic to ask Hu Jing, "How many earth-digging realms does Zhejiang currently have?" Hu Jing immediately replied, "Zhejiang has a total of 5,007 earth-digging realms. After the Blood Guard army was annihilated, only 4,700 remained, but among the more than 5,000 sent off last night, more than 1,700 were earth-digging realms, so now there are only just over 3,000 left." When mentioning that more than 1,700 earth-digging realms were included in the over 5,000 people sent off last night, Hu Jing's pupils flickered slightly. Xia Hong also raised an eyebrow and gave him an inquisitive look. Hu Jing nodded and said, "Leader, rest assured, I have arranged everything." "Good, then I won't say much more. There are only about 2 hours left before dawn, and time is running out. Go back directly to gather these 3,000 earth-digging realms, put the existing armor of Zhejiang on them, and have Hu Xing, Zhang Ying, and Kong Fan lead them to set off for White Abyss immediately after night falls tomorrow." "Yes, sir." Hu Jing didn't ask anything further, nodded to accept the order, and headed straight back to the camp. "Leader, you wouldn't be thinking." Yuan Dao clearly guessed Xia Hong's next intention, and after a moment of shock, couldn't help but exclaim at him in surprise. "Are they going directly to attack Long Mountain?" Chapter 730, Chapter 299, Troops at the Gates Search Helplessness. Longyu Year 48, June 23, first half of the night. The army stops advancing. 2 kilometers northwest of the Hive Station, 3,000 Longyu soldiers braved the wind and snow for 3 hours. At Li Xuanyan's command, they finally halted. 27 kilometers in just over 3 hours. Walking along the tunnel is so much faster than the usual pace on the snowy plains. Xia Hong couldn't help but murmur in admiration from within the cold resistance level squad ahead. Beside him, Song Ning immediately said, "The tunnel built by Great Xia is laid along a flat road, and at its inception, they must have put in effort to clear debris and ditches on both sides. Thus, we encountered no obstacles, and it's normal for our speed to have doubled. If simply walking by the tunnel can double the speed, wouldn't it be even faster to walk through it directly?" "Much more than a little. My father said that Great Xia probably set up many coal stoves and torches inside the tunnels, making them much warmer than outside. Marching inside would eliminate concerns about terrain and harsh weather, making the speed 7 or 8 times faster at least. Why don't we just use the tunnel and save all this effort, marching 3 hours from Wushwang? I heard it was the leader who worried Great Xia might have set some traps in the tunnel." "I see, I just thought." "Shut up, a major battle is imminent. Stop chattering, we're about to go underground." Scolded by Song Kang, the two turned their heads to see hundreds of Longyu soldiers quickly dispersing across the eastern snowy plains 3 to 5 kilometers around, led by a group of cold resistance levels. They pulled out their spears, furiously poking and sweeping the ground, clearly searching for something. "Found it." After half a small hour, a soldier on the northern snowy plain shouted in amazement, drawing many over. Li Xuanling immediately led the cold resistance levels over at a sprint. Seeing the leader and others approaching, the soldiers quickly made way. "The entrance has been buried." Before they got close, the soldiers inside reported, and expressions immediately turned grim for Xuanling and others. Approaching the site, they saw the hole on the ground. Xuanling and the other cold resistance levels looked visibly solemn. The snow above the entrance had been cleared by the soldiers. Underneath lay a 2-meter-wide circular pit. Unlike the otherwise black ground, the earth in the pit appeared much fresher, clearly newly filled. Meng Ying approached the hole and thrust his longsword into the ground. The ice abyss, covered in perpetual snow, had extremely hard ground, requiring effort to pierce even with the sharpest weapons. But this spot was different. Meng Ying's longsword carved through the ground as if slicing tofu, leaving the handle above ground. Clearly, it was originally an entrance to the hive underground station, only recently filled. By the moisture and compactness of the soil, it was evident the filling had occurred within the past day or two. There are a total of 9 ground entrances to the hive. We've confirmed 6 were filled yesterday, leaving 3 in this area. Could Great Xia have sealed off all passages to the surface? Everyone shook their heads at Meng Ying's words. The hive station lies 100 meters deep underground. Let alone the main zone space below, the volume of work even along 29 passages is incredibly extensive and complex. Even with over 10,000 earth-digging realm workers, it would take years to complete. Great Xia had controlled the hive for only just over 2 months. How could it be possible? Impossible. They likely only sealed off this portion of the entrances. Notify others, confirm all 9 entrance locations, then form groups of 5 and forcefully damage the nearby ground. You're bound to find a passage below. Yes, sir. At Li Chuanling's command, the cold resistance levels bowed in acknowledgement, leading their soldiers to confirm all surrounding entrances. Li Chuandu remained still nearby, furrowing his brow, speaking quietly. We inspected Mirror Valley last night, confirmed it was empty. The tunnel from Mirror Valley to the hive showed traces of vast earth-digging realm supplies, roughly estimated at over 5,000. Adding Wushwang's 4,000, Great Xia likely amassed at least 9,000, if not 10,000 below. Li Chuanling nodded lightly. Last night, accompanied by her third brother, Li Chuandu, Meng Ying, and Cheng Guang, she conducted a reconnaissance of Hive Station. The 4 hadn't successfully penetrated the hive underground, but from extensive cleanup traces around the station and the vacant condition at Mirror Valley, much could be inferred. Upon returning from Mirror Valley, they unexpectedly discovered another snow-covered tunnel connecting it to the hive, with leftover warmth and deep wheel tracks indicating Great Xia had recently moved massive earth-digging realm forces and supplies there. Having examined around the hive without traces of large-scale human movement, it was apparent that the group had entered the underground station. Hence, Li Chuandu commented accordingly. Afterwards, without finishing, Li Chuandu pondered a moment and added, filling the entrance, hiding underground, Xia Hong intends to avoid battle. Even if they've stored ample resources below, they'll only last a few months. When those months pass, how can they not lose? Chapter 731, Chapter 299, Troops at the Gates, searching, completely at a loss too. Li Chuanling heard this and immediately frowned. Harsh environment of the ice abyss has already determined that most camps cannot have too many reserve supplies. This has nothing to do with being strong or weak. Strong camps have a larger population and more highly cultivated people, so they naturally consume more supplies. On the other hand, weaker camps have fewer people and less ability to acquire resources, making it even less possible for them to have many reserves. Even a strong place like Long Mountain, if they don't go out to gather and hunt for a long period, can last at most half a year. Li Chuandu judged that the Great Xia could hold out underground for a few months, which was already considering the worst-case scenario. From the Great Xia's retreat into the beehives underground, and the discovery of an empty Mirror Valley last night, one can basically conclude that from Redwood Ridge, there will be no more reinforcements coming from Great Xia. This means the 9,000 earth-digging realm they have underground is the strongest force they can bring to Longyu. 1,000 Cloud Dragon army plus 8,000 ordinary earth-digging realm is naturally no match for the 3,000-strong Longyu army. Clearly, Great Xia is well aware of this, which is why they have retreated with their men into the beehive's underground space, choosing to avoid the battle. The question is, can they avoid it for now but forever? Long Mountain only needs to guard the surface of the beehive and wait for a few months, and they will naturally surrender as their supplies run out, leading eventually to a dead end. Li Chuanling ordered her men to find the underground entrance because she is confident that, with her 3,000 Longyu army, she can go in and completely eliminate this batch of people from Great Xia. In other words, if the Longyu army encounters any setbacks in their attack, she will immediately change tactics, guarding the surface to prevent Great Xia's people from coming out. After a few months, Great Xia will still meet a dead end. Xia Hong, being such a clever person, could not have overlooked this point. This proves that his retreat underground is still a delaying tactic. The real intent is to stall their 3,000 Longyu army. Li Xuandu suddenly furrowed his brows, looked up, and exchanged a glance with Li Xuanling, realizing that the same thought had occurred to both of them, their pupils flashing with surprise. No, wait, why would he need to stall us? Almost all of Great Xia's effective forces are here. If Xia City had any reinforcements, Mirror Valley couldn't possibly be empty. It can't be that he's waiting for these 9,000 plus people to cultivate and break through, could it? After saying this, Li Xuandu couldn't help but shake his head. Waiting for more than 9,000 people to cultivate and break through is even more unrealistic. But he really couldn't figure out why Xia Hong still needs to stall them. Could it be that he's trying to lure us to attack Xia City? At this moment, Meng Ying suddenly spoke. He was one of the 4 people who came to explore last night. Seeing Li Xuanling and Li Xuandu both looking at him, he continued hurriedly. They shifted a large number of earth-digging realm people to the beehive. Logically speaking, Xia City must be empty right now. Could Xia Hong be thinking that if he just holds the beehive tightly and we fail to conquer it for a long time, we might go through Mirror Valley and head south to attack Xia City, allowing him to bring this batch of people from the beehive to launch a rear assault while we're stuck in the siege? Upon hearing Meng Ying's words, Li Xuanling and Li Xuandu were momentarily stunned, then pondered them carefully, their expressions gradually becoming peculiar. It's quite possible, to be honest. It really could be. From the news my uncle brought back, Xia City's defenses are extremely strong and hard to break. Xia Hong deliberately left no one in Mirror Valley, and it really might be to lure us into attacking Xia City. He would only need to leave a part of the earth-digging realm in Xia City to rely on the strong defenses to hold us off temporarily. Even if we eventually broke in, we'd likely suffer significant casualties. And if at that time he brought this batch of people from the beehive for a rear assault, then perhaps. At this, Li Xuandu paused and continued to Li Xuanling. This seems to be the only way Great Xia can have any chance of winning against us. The 3,000 Longyu army, even when facing 10 times its number of ordinary earth-digging realm, has no fear. Great Xia's earth-digging realm cannot number 30,000, so triumphing over Long Mountain in a head-on manner is utterly impossible. But if things proceed as Meng Ying and Li Xuandu have speculated, the outcome is truly uncertain. Even if they don't win, Long Mountain would probably still be significantly damaged. Li Xuanling frowned and asked the two, "If it's really as you suspect, does this mean Xia Hong is entirely confident that we absolutely cannot take the beehive in a short time?" Li Xuandu and Meng Ying were silent for a moment, and then nodded in unison. "Then Xia Hong is too naive. We are completely clear on all the underground passages of the beehive. Once we pinpoint one, we can immediately sort them all out, find the entrance to the main area. 9,000 people thinking to hold us off, they're dreaming. Leader, we found it, an entrance in the southeast direction. The filling wasn't thorough, and the shallow tunnels nearby have been collapsed with brute force, revealing a path down." Just as Li Xuanling finished her words, the voice of Li Xuanping came through. Hearing this, she was overjoyed and immediately rushed over with Li Xuandu and Meng Ying, not forgetting to have Li Xuanping notify all other cold resistance levels, including the Longyu army, to gather. "The leader is here. Make way, the leader is here." Near a location about 2 kilometers southeast, surrounded by several hundred people, when they saw Li Xuanling approaching with her group, they immediately made way. Li Xuanling walked into the center with the crowd, and saw that the outermost part of the collapsed underground did indeed have a narrow passage entrance, and her expression immediately brightened. Chapter 732, Chapter 299, Troops at the Gates, Searching, Completely at a Loss 3. Third brother, take 20 people to explore this tunnel, sort out the tunnel numbers, identify the direction of tunnel number 1, and confirm the exact location of the Hive Station's main entrance. They only confirmed the entrance's location, but the specifics of the underground, what traps Great Xia had set, they knew nothing about. In such circumstances, Li Xuanling naturally wouldn't recklessly lead the army down, but instead instructed his third brother Li Xuandu to lead the exploration. The situation of all 11 camps in Longyu, Long Mountain was well aware of, and Li Xuandu was the person who had been organizing this intelligence for years. The 29 tunnels beneath the hive, including their location information, he knew best, so he was naturally the choice for the exploration. There shouldn't be any problems, I'll go right away. The 20 people Li Xuandu led were not regular Longyu army soldiers but real cold resistance level from Long Mountain. With so many cold resistance level going down together, let alone traps, even if all the great Xia people were hiding in the tunnels, they had nothing to fear. Soon, Li Xuandu led 20 people down from the entrance. Time slowly passed, and after waiting for a full half-hour, Li Xuandu and his team did not come back up. Li Xuanling's face gradually showed a hint of impatience. He looked up at the sky, and his expression slightly hardened. The Ice Abyss night lasted only 10 hours in total, and tonight the army had already spent 3.5 hours marching from Wushwang. Another hour was spent searching for the entrance, and now it had been over 6 hours in total. There were only just over 3 hours left until dawn. If they delayed further, tonight there would definitely be no battle. Another half-hour passed. Just as Li Xuanling couldn't resist wanting to send more people down, Li Xuandu led his team, climbing up from the tunnel. Why did it take so long? What's the situation underground? Li Xuandu and his team's response appeared normal, suggesting they hadn't encountered any ambush, but their expressions were grim, clearly bringing back bad news. Great Xia has completely altered the underground tunnels, making them unrecognizable. We spent a long time using brute force to break through more than a dozen filled tunnels before we could map out all the tunnels, situations, and create a draft map. Li Xuandu took out 2 beast skin rolls from his person and handed them to Li Xuanling. The one on the left was a clearly organized diagram of the underground tunnels. From number 1 to number 29, all tunnels were clearly marked, while the one on the right was a draft map of winding tunnels with many cut-off paths in the middle, with ink marks still wet, obviously drawn by Li Xuandu in the past hour. Can you sort it out and find the location of tunnel number 1? Li Xuanling only glanced at the draft map and immediately frowned and inquired. Tunnel number 1 is the only passage connecting to the hive's main underground area. To find the main area, they must find tunnel number 1. From this draft map on the right, it appeared Great Xia had scrambled all the underground tunnels, naturally not leaving any numbering for them. Therefore, to find tunnel number 1, it could only be done through field surveying and comparing with the original map. I stayed down there so long to try to find tunnel number 1's location, but Great Xia's destruction is simply too thorough. I can't do it in a short time. I need more manpower, preferably another 20 people, and give me 2 hours. I should be able to find it. Hearing this, Li Xuanling showed no surprise. The complexity and length of the hive's underground tunnels are famous in Longyu. Li Xuandu being confident in finding it in just 2 hours was already quite impressive. Go gather the people first and be careful. Find it as soon as possible. Okay. Though she nodded in agreement for Li Xuandu to lead more people down, her expression involuntarily grew much more somber. It was confirmed tonight there would be no battle. It meant another day was wasted. According to the previous guess by Meng Ying and Li Xuandu, Great Xia retreating into the hive was to make them retreat in difficulty, luring them to attack Xia City. This guess was indeed logical and made sense, which was why Li Xuanling did not refute them. But not refuting did not mean agreeing. Heading south to Mirror Valley to attack Xia City is clearly a foolish move. I would never do something so stupid. If Xia Hong really thinks like that, then he underestimates me. But if it's not that, then it proves he merely wants to use the hive to stall my 3,000 Longyu army. Li Xuanling frowned deeply, and in the end, one question lingered in her mind. What was Great Xia's ultimate purpose in retreating into the hive and stalling her 3,000 Longyu army? Xia City had no reinforcements. Longyu couldn't have any other camps to aid Great Xia, and 9,000 people in underground cultivation was simply impossible. So what was it for? There's no reason. Leader, dawn is approaching. Should we have the army camp on the spot? While Li Xuanling was deep in thought, Meng Ying suddenly approached and asked. She didn't answer immediately but first glanced at the newly discovered underground tunnel entrance, then said, "No need, wait for third brother to find the location of tunnel number 1. I'll lead you into the underground to camp." Camp underground. Meng Ying was momentarily stunned, a bit taken aback, but seeing Li Xuanling already closing her eyes to rest, clearly unwilling to say more, he didn't question further. Time slowly passed as Li Xuanling, a few cold resistance level, and the 3,000 Longyu army waited quietly. Just half an hour before dawn, Li Xuandu's excited voice finally came from the tunnel entrance. Chapter 733. Chapter 299. Troops at the gates, searching, completely at a loss for. Found it, found it. The location of tunnel number 1 has been confirmed. After Li Xuandu walked out, 40 cold resistance level also followed. All were excited. Clearly they had discovered something. Take me down, big brother, second brother. You two come along. Li Xuanling directly ordered Li Xuandu to lead the way, and called for Li Xuanyan and Li Xuanxiang. The three of them followed Li Xuandu into the cave. Less than an hour until dawn. Isn't the army going to set up camp? The leader just said to camp underground. Camp underground, what does that mean? I don't know either. Seeing that the Longyu army on the surface had not yet started setting up camp, the recently surfaced cold resistance levels immediately began to inquire for reasons, and when they heard Meng Ying's explanation, they were all puzzled, showing looks of confusion. But soon they knew the reason. Boom! A massive explosion shook from over 2 kilometers away to the west. All the cold resistance levels, expressions changed, and they quickly ran toward the sound of the explosion. At the center of the explosion was a vast hole with a diameter of 7 or 8 meters, surrounded by dust and snow, clearly having been blown upward from underground. Notify the army to move closer this way. We'll punch a few more deep holes and let the soldiers slide down along the openings. Tonight we'll camp underground. The crowd initially thought some cold beast had emerged from underground, but then Li Xuandu's voice came from below. Boom, boom, boom. Another succession of 6 or 7 massive explosions similar to before rang out. The crowd saw the openings blown in the ground, feeling the violent tremors beneath their feet, and finally realized that the holes were forcibly punched through by the fists of Li Xuanling and her 3 brothers underground. Wasn't it said the hive station is over 100 meters underground? Is the leader's power that strong? Such a big hole made by a fist this. Ordinary ground wouldn't hold. The hive over the years built many underground passages, nearly hollowing out the surrounding subsoil, and these passages need to vent and exhaust gas regularly. The ground above is probably not as firm as before. All right, cut the chatter, hurry, and inform the soldiers to prepare to go down. This is the midpoint of tunnel number 1, just over 70 meters from the surface. The part leading to the main area was filled by Great Xia. Right here, look. In an underground passage, Li Xuandu led Li Xuanling and the others to the end of the passage, near an area recently filled with soil. The end of tunnel number 1 is the entrance to the hive main zone space, meaning, once we blast this soil away, we'll see the main area's gate. After Li Xuanyan asked, he immediately looked at Li Xuandu, and upon receiving his nod, he held his breath and charged toward the area. Boom! Like a human cannonball, he smashed into the fresh soil, forging ahead 10 meters, the ground quaking incessantly, squeezing open the filled area, directly creating a passage over 10 meters long. Thud! Then it seemed he encountered an obstacle. A dull sound of flesh meeting iron echoed underground, heavy and prolonged. This part was poured with iron. The temperature is still quite high, must have been poured recently. We should be near the main area entrance. Li Xuanyan's voice carried a hint of joy. Li Xuanling and the others entered the passage, seeing the mark Li Xuanyan left on the iron wall, and immediately stepped forward to touch it, finding it still warm. A mixed expression appeared on their faces. Happy because this was recently poured, they had likely found the entrance to the hive underground main area. The problem was how to breach this barrier. Let me try. Li Xuanling furrowed her brow, signaled the other 3 to stand aside, and struck the iron wall hard with her right fist. Although a woman, her fist did not carry the same brute force as a man's, but under the augmentation of over 20 man's strength, the airflow in the entire tunnel began to agitate. The momentum was even more terrifying than Li Xuanyan's body collision. Thud! Her fist landed. The iron wall emitted the same sound as before, but this time it wasn't just her fist, even her arm punched through. Even so, the iron wall merely trembled, still unyielding. At least 15 meters thick, brute force won't break it. A 2-meter diameter, 15-meter-high cylindrical iron column that took millions of pounds of iron ore to pour. Great Xia really spared no expense. Upon hearing it was 15 meters thick, Li Xuandu shook his head and commented, pointing to the soil above the iron wall. "It's a shame. They are still on the dumb side. We can't break the main entrance, but we can go around, just break through the soil on top. Xia Hong isn't that smart after all." Li Xuanling silently frowned, watching Li Xuandu and Li Xuanqiang forcefully destroy the soil layer above the iron wall. The soil layer was much easier. The two only took less than 10 moments to break through, creating a new passage more than 10 meters long. Still the iron wall, how is this possible? Unfortunately, Li Xuandu's next words deeply unsettled Li Xuanling. He hurriedly joined Li Xuanyan atop the soil layer, seeing the pitch-black iron wall that appeared at the end, and his expression grew even more dour. "The temperature here is low, not recent iron pouring." "Let me try." Li Xuanling told the three to stand aside, and struck this iron wall again with a fist. Boom! Thinner than before, but still over 10 meters, brute force won't break it. Li Xuanling withdrew her fist, observing the surroundings along the iron wall, her expression growing grimmer. "It can't be, the hive's underground space." Li Xuandu guessed something, quickly shuffled the soil around the iron wall, and soon exposed an area of 5 or 6 meters. Behind the soil were contiguous iron walls. The hive underground main zone's barriers are all poured with iron. Not only all poured with iron, but all over 10 meters thick. This, Li Xuandu was instantly dumbfounded. Looking back, Li Xuanling and Li Xuanyan both looked as though they had swallowed flies. Only Li Xuanqiang, looking at the iron wall, remained calm, lost in thought about something. "Even if the four of us worked together without resting to destroy this 10-meter thick iron wall using brute force, it would still take at least half a day. Half a day and the great Xia will stand and watch us break down the iron wall. Moreover, barely opening a small breach is useless. Having 3,000 Long-Yu soldiers enter one by one would be suicide. Where did the hive get so much iron ore? Impossible. If the entire underground space's barrier is all 10-meter thick iron walls, I don't believe it. Search, notify all cold resistance levels to follow along the iron wall, search all over. There might be regions without the iron barrier. Even if not, finding a few weak points allows us to better breach. But doing so will take a lot of time. What else can we do? Time must be spent. Are we just going to wait here for Great Xia's resources to deplete and force them to surrender? All right, no more talking. Notify all cold resistance levels to start searching quickly. Li Xuanling's eyes were full of anger, yet she had no choice but to issue the command. Both attacks on Changbai Gully and Ningyuan Hill had made her very cautious of Great Xia, so at Wushuang last night she refrained from advancing recklessly, choosing to first investigate the hive's situation. Her prudence may have not been entirely wrong. In hindsight, it was such caution that caused her to miss her opportunity. Would have thought Great Xia planned to cower within this fortress. If only she had advanced straight away last night, not giving Xia Hong the chance to burrow inside. Now knowing the enemy was within a shell, yet being utterly helpless, was extremely frustrating. Chapter 734, Chapter 300, Relentless Pursuit, the Beast Tide Breaks the Wall. Second year of Great Xia, July 4th. Bang, bangs, bang. On the west side of the main zone entrance of the hive underground, a section of the wall has started to deform dramatically, with the stones on the wall having long fallen off, exposing an iron wall protruding into a large bulge, at least 3 to 4 meters thick. The fierce pounding outside continues, causing the entire main zone space to tremble incessantly. Beneath the impinged barrier position, over 1,000 earth-digging realm of Great Xia are working together to erect a cylindrical giant iron stake with iron chains. The cylindrical iron stake is more than 3 meters in diameter and about over 20 meters high. Seeing so many people needing iron chains to raise it, its weight is evidently astonishing. Among the crowd below, leading are Yuan Cheng, Zhao Long, Qiu Peng, and over 10 others of cold resistance level. Standing at the forefront after raising the iron stake, they then command the crowd to move forward until the top of the stake aligns with the protruding impinged position, slowly opening their mouths. Everyone put some effort, push up 1, 2, 3, heave. More than 10 cold resistance levels, along with over 1,000 earth-digging realm, all exert their strength, tilting the iron stake directly against the protruding impinged spot on the barrier. Bang! The massive pounding from outside strikes again, causing the people underneath holding the stake to retreat a few steps. However, since the end of the stake is already leaning on the ground, most of the impact forces offset, leaving the people unharmed except for stepping back. Bang, bangs, bang. After the bulge is propped up, the sound of pounding immediately changes. It's apparent that after the giant iron stake absorbs the force, the pressure on the iron wall greatly reduces, and the sound is not as fierce as before. The vibrations within the main zone space also diminish. Bang, bang. The outsiders seem to have realized something, and after a few more strikes, they suddenly stop. Ha ha ha, they've stopped again. Li Xuanling is really relentless. It's already past midnight, and they've tried 7 times and still refused to give up. Yuan Cheng lets out a hearty laugh, and next to him, Qiu Peng, Zhao Long, and the 1,000 earth-digging realm who just moved the iron stake also start laughing. Amidst the laughter, everyone can't help but look up at the top barrier. The entire upper barrier of the main zone space shows 6 huge bulges, each 3 to 4 meters thick, apparently all hammered out by Li Xuanling and their group on the outside. Every time, we wait until they hit for 2 hours before supporting it with the stake. They can't see from outside and might be thinking the iron wall is too thick to break through, ha ha ha. Luo Yuan, among the crowd, turns his head to glance back and then asks everyone, "Where's the minister?" Everyone turns around and finds that Xia Chuan is no longer behind them. He should have gone to inspect other places. The main zone barrier is large, and he's worried Long Mountain might mess around from other spots. Upon hearing this, everyone shows a peculiar expression, and finally Yuan Cheng speaks up. In the entire main zone, there's only a small opening on the top of the main building's barrier, and we've already plugged it. What else can Long Mountain do? They have no way other than brute force to break through. The group nods in agreement, their faces approving. All the barriers in the hive main zone were poured with molten iron, leaving only some air holes, along with one main entrance and a small hole on top of the main building with a diameter of no more than half a meter. On the night of the retreat from Wushwang, they sealed the main entrance with molten iron. Although the small hole above the main building wasn't blocked, the channel connecting it to the surface was filled afterwards with brute force. Whether Long Mountain can find the small hole on top of the main building underground is aside. Even if they find it, what use is a hole with a diameter of only half a meter that can only accommodate one person at a time? If the Longyu army dares to enter one by one through that small hole, it would be courting death. So aside from breaking through the iron wall with brute force, Long Mountain has no other way. Don't be careless, just keep an eye on this side. Just then Xia Chuan's voice suddenly echoes from behind. Everyone turns back to see Xia Chuan and Chen Yingyuan walking over from the direction of the main zone building cluster. "Sir, there's really no need to worry. The strength of Li Xuanling and her 3 siblings is indeed remarkable, but the iron stake made by Director Mu weighs over 30 million pounds. Given our strategic patience, as long as we watch where they strike and prop it up, there's no chance they can break it." Upon hearing Yuan Cheng's words, Xia Chuan doesn't refute but smiles a little while looking at the 7 bulging points on the iron wall above. If they could make a long enough and big enough sharp iron tool, it wouldn't be impossible to break through with enough people attacking from outside. But Long Mountain came from afar, and Li Xuanling wouldn't have guessed that the hive's stronghold would have such a solid iron wall fortress, so they certainly wouldn't be prepared. Therefore, this time, they're doomed not to break through. Situated beside Yuan Cheng is Mu Dong, who, together with Cheng Feng and Bai Dongying, was urged by Xia Hong at the end of April to speed up their cultivation. They finally broke through to the cold resistance level at the beginning of this month and were transferred by Xia Chuan from Xia City to lead the army guarding the hive. The giant iron stake was temporarily forged by him, and a group of craftsmen using the iron ore stored in the hive after surveying the underground space of the hive. At the start of its creation, he was already contemplating how to break through such a 10-meter thick solid iron wall like the hive's from the outside. So when he heard Yuan Cheng saying it was impossible to break through, he subconsciously retorted. Chapter 735, Chapter 300, Perseverance Beast Tide Breaks the Barrier Part 2. Everyone heard the words, including Yuan Cheng, and immediately nodded. Indeed, although the barricade is 10 meters thick, it is still iron after all. If there was a long and heavy enough sharp iron tool, the Longyu army working together from the outside could break it without too much difficulty. Unfortunately, the Longyu army has come from afar and couldn't possibly be so well prepared. Melting on the spot is impossible without iron ore and coal stone. The beehive is at least 100 kilometers in a straight line from Long Mountain, so going back to Long Mountain to retrieve them is not realistic. Bang, bang. The top space suddenly started to make loud noises again. Evidently, the cold resistance level of outside Long Mountain had begun to try striking again. The 8th time now and still coming. Change position. This time it's on the east side of the main gate. Persisting like this, determined to take down the beehive. They arrived last night and it's been a day now. They haven't even seen our faces, yet they're still not giving up. Just wait, let their people tire for a while, and when the iron wall bulges more than 3 meters, reinforce it with iron stakes. I want to see how resilient Long Mountain really is. Xia Chuan looked up at the spot being struck above, his brows slightly furrowed. They just won't take a detour to attack Xia City. It seems Long Mountain has scouted Xia City's situation and knows it's even harder to attack, so they've decided to stubbornly tackle the beehive. Beside him, Chen Yingyuan nodded slightly, saying, Li Xuanling is very astute and should be able to see that we deliberately withdrew people from Mirror Valley to lure her to attack Xia City. But attacking Xia City is not only more difficult but also risks being besieged from all sides, so she definitely won't go. Xia Chuan just smiled at these words, without speaking. He withdrew the people from Mirror Valley as a sure-win interlocking strategy, both to prevent the Long Mountain army from bypassing the beehive and heading south, and to lure them south through Mirror Valley to directly attack Xia City. If the plan succeeded, he could lead the 9,000-plus people of the beehive to launch an offensive, jointly attacking with the guards inside Xia City, delivering a deadly blow to Long Mountain. Failing that, the people of Mirror Valley would be safe, and they would still guard the beehive as usual, with no loss. However, Chen Yingyuan furrowed his brows a bit tighter and continued, Li Xuanling doesn't seem like someone so stubborn. Trying 7 different places and still continuing for the 8th time, any fool would see we're staying inside at ease. No matter how many tries she makes, it won't break the barricade. Why is she so persistently attempting this? Hearing this, Xia Chuan frowned and immediately fell into thought. Indeed, this bullheaded persistence doesn't seem like Li Xuanling's style. But what other means can she possibly have to break the iron wall? Entire underground main zone has only one small opening on the top floor of the main building. I've already dispatched Zhao Hu, Zhao Bao, and 10 cold resistance level, along with over 3,000 men, to completely surround that place. The remaining 5,000-plus people patrol the surrounding area of the main zone day and night. No matter what move Long Mountain might make, I will detect it first. I just don't believe they can still have some new trick. If reasoning doesn't work, simply stop reasoning further. After all, the plan is to hold the beehive to the last. As long as they don't let Long Mountain break in for a day, they've prolonged it another day. Even if they really break in, with 9,500 earth-digging realm, plus their 27 cold resistance level, defending against 3,000 Long Yu army is not entirely hopeless. Looks like Li Xuanling doesn't plan to stop. With such noise, the following days are bound to be restless. Let's go patrol other places. Chen Yingyuan nodded and walked together with Xia Chuan to other positions in the main zone. The hive main zone is underground, horizontally a circular space with a diameter of 3 kilometers, with the highest part of the space around 20 to 30 meters and the lowest even over 10 meters. The entire space is underground, and Great Xia has to defend not only the spot where Li Xuanling is currently striking, but all positions virtually need to be accounted for, up, down, left, and right. A small opening atop the main building has Zhao Hu, Zhao Bao, and 10 cold resistance level leading 3,000 men stationed. The position Li Xuanling is charging at is defended by Yuan Cheng leading 12 cold resistance level and 1,000 men, using that iron stake as defense. The remaining 5,000 plus are led by Meng Yi, Zhu Yuan, and Hong Tian to patrol other locations in the settlement. Bang! From the southwest corner of the settlement, a rock suddenly fell down with a crash. The inspecting Hong Yu below quickly dodged sideways, avoiding the rock before looking toward the iron gate position on the east side of the main zone, immediately shaking his head repeatedly. With that iron stake, Long Mountain stands no chance using brute force to break this iron wall. I just don't understand why they're so persistent. Not far from him, Meng Ao heard this and immediately laughed. Having lost 800 sets of 100 forged level armor and 2 armies, this group from Long Mountain must hate us to the core. This isn't persistence, it should be called being blinded by hatred. Has hell indeed. Hong Yu snickered at these words, couldn't help but show off the 100-forged great blade in his hand, and said, "Too bad our strength isn't enough, or we could have shared a set of 100-forged battle armor to wear. There are only a little over 3,000 sets of 100-forged battle armor in total. You need at least 20,000 pounds of basic strength to wear it. We're short by over 1,000. It is a bit unfortunate." Meng Ao couldn't help but sigh, pulled out a strong bow from behind him, and showed the blood-colored arrows in the arrow quiver with a smile. "Considering the three of us got to share 2 blades and a 30-stone strong bow, it's already quite impressive." Nearby Zhu Kang heard him, waved his 100-forged great blade, and also smiled.